Hi, and welcome to another AOGP, Scientology Outside of the Church podcast. It is now January 11th, 2025. What we've got here for you is a four-part series from 2017. Me with Andy Nolch, and this has been one of the most popular podcast series, especially this first one, really. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback on these, so I decided to go ahead and pop these onto YouTube and our Buzzsprout account, which will put it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everything like that. And we hope you enjoy these. We'll be coming back with some more new podcasts after this. This will give you something to chew on till we get those up later next week, the second week of January. And we hope you enjoy these.
And are you there, John?
I am. Thank you, Andy. Good to see you.
All right, great. Yeah, it's good. It's good to speak with you. We had some problems with Skype last week, but anyway, I'm just going to dive into it because I've got a lot of questions to ask you. I want to ask you about this idea that one thetan can be operating two bodies at the same time. Like when I heard LH mention something like this, to me it was too kooky land. It was too out there. I mean, it's just too what the hell, because it's like, I'm here right now, you know, I'm not anywhere else. I'm here. You know, maybe when I'm sleeping, okay, I can understand the idea, maybe I'm sleeping, I'm some other person in Japan or something, but at the moment, I'm here. I don't know, this idea is pretty out there. Do you know anything about it?
Well, I've had a week to think about this since we spoke about it when we tried to start the interview last week. So my answer is this. A thetan, a spirit, for those who aren't Scientologists, can be anything and can be convinced that they can be anything. With that in mind, a thetan could be in two places at once or three places at once or four places at once. And the reason for that is because there is no time or distance in what we call the theta universe with which a spirit or thetan resides. Many times in auditing sessions, you will handle individuals who are, for lack of a better expression, on the other side of the physical universe and maybe a couple of galaxies away or even further. It doesn't matter because there's no distance and there is no time. Time is a lie and distance is part of that lie in the physical universe. So if you're viewing something from the viewpoint of a physical body viewpoint, then something like that would sound rather unreal, for lack of a better expression. So yes, it is possible, just from the viewpoint that a thetan can be in more than one place at once, because more than one place does not necessarily mean that it is more than one place in the physical universe, because it isn't. That's just a consideration.
Well, there's this idea of parallel universes, and apparently, you know, there's a universe that's slightly different, and there's another version of me in that slightly different universe. So that, again, is a trippy situation where it's like, well, I thought I was here, and then apparently I'm in some other parallel universe that's slightly different.
Uh-huh.
Like, what the hell? And then there's the idea that there's God, right? And then everyone apparently is like a piece of God, right? Well, if we as Thetans actually supposed to be God, like we originally were, and then we've become degraded over millions of years, that sort of makes sense that there could be multiple versions of you, John.
Well, I've run into this in auditing a lot lately, as far as the parallel universe thing, and that there might be other, for lack of a better expression, pieces of the same individual in a different universe that are operating in tandem. I tend to think that at this point, from where I stand as a solo auditor, that's the case to a greater degree rather than a less degree. I couldn't verify that. I couldn't give you a certificate or anything like that. But that's part of the OT levels is awareness and knowingness. And I find that that's very likely what the case is. What effect that has on a person in this universe, I've yet to understand myself, but I do experience that frequently. It's sort of a just around the corner type of a thing, but that's probably the same thing you run into. But I think that is the case.
Are you talking now about predicting the future?
No, I'm not talking about predicting the future. That's a different phenomenon. I'm talking about there being another portion of you that you aren't either accessing or maybe only have a slight realization of. I found that was something that increased as I did the OT levels. It was something that I was ever so slightly aware of before, but I'm a past life Scientologist, so I might have had a little bit of an advantage. But that's just my awareness, my knowingness and perception. I can't speak for other people beyond that, so let me give that as an underscore to the whole thing.
Oh, this is just so deep. This is why it's really interesting with the Mandela Effect, because I think it's exposing something really, really big about the truth of life, I think. Like, for example, with me... Well, sorry, I want you to elaborate as well on the Mandela Effect, but I want to quickly say something with me, right? I had a situation where my mother told me that our neighbour was Japanese, right? And I was like, I thought they were always Chinese, right? Like, I never thought about them, I just assumed Chinese, because usually most people who look like that, you assume are Chinese, really. Anyway, so I was like, they're Japanese. She's like, yeah, they've got a Japanese restaurant. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then I remembered seeing some stuff in their house, and I thought, oh, yeah, maybe it seems a bit Japanese. Then a few years later, and this is when the Mandela Effect kicked in, like when I noticed more changes, right, like the changes of Sex and the City TV show and stuff. Then I spoke to my mum about the neighbours, and I mentioned how they're Japanese, and she goes, no, they're Chinese. And they've got a Chinese restaurant. And I was like, what the hell? And there was another instance as well involving a street that's near where my mum lives, right? And how I remember how it used to be a pain in the ass because it had a bunch of speed bumps on it. Now it only has like 2.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
And she goes, they were never there, right? So this is what's so deep and so trippy about it. Okay, so I've got the same mum, yet my mum has different memories. So it's like, was I in another parallel universe communicating to a different version of my mum, or have I changed universes or something? But I can understand this sort of idea of a thetan being in control of 2 bodies or something. I don't know.
Well, I think more of it, I wouldn't look at it from the viewpoint of bodies, per se. I would look at it more from the standpoint of viewpoints. Because if you're using a body as a stable datum, it's a pretty shaky stable datum. Like LRH says, they're very, very fragile things, and they can only tolerate a certain temperature band, which is very narrow, a certain pressure band that's very narrow. They can only see an extremely small portion of the light spectrum.
Yeah.
They can only hear a small spectrum, the sonic spectrum, and so on. So I wouldn't view it necessarily from a body viewpoint. That may not necessarily be the case also. Because a viewpoint, you're looking at it from the viewpoint of a body looking at another universe, which is you're kind of adding +1 to the equation when that may not be there. But that being said, it's also possible that the things that you're running into might be a little bit of a feedback from one of your other viewpoints. Whereas in that particular universe, maybe they were Chinese, and maybe they are Japanese in this universe. So to assign a significance to it beyond what it is in this universe, I think would be a little wrong-headed. But that's just my own opinion. If anything, like LRH says, the best particle is admiration, and just admire it and look at it and laugh, because universes are fragile things, and they're all a little wacky. They all have their own idiosyncrasies, the physical universe notwithstanding, of course.
Wow, it is really interesting. There definitely is more to what's going on. It's not just bad memories, because I can't remember how to spell things. I don't really care about those sort of things, but there are other things that I can specifically go, this is strange. I want you to, I listened to your explanation of the Mandela Effect, and I don't know, I didn't quite make sense of it, so I wouldn't mind, since we're on that topic, you really clearing up what you think it is.
Well, what I'm saying is that if, let's say, you have 4 universes, and in one universe there's 3 speed bumps, in another universe there's no speed bumps, in another universe it's a gravel road, and in another universe there's something other than all of those things combined, because that universe is significantly different than any of the other 3. You could get a little bit of a feedback from those other universes that it is adding something to your perception of it. And so you may be getting something from that universe where you might be more in ARC that day, quote-unquote day, with that one that is in the universe with a gravel road or something like that. So it may not be anything in this universe. It may be something that's kind of looping back from one of those other areas. Or it could be something much like the pilot talks about in his materials, as far as, and also CBR, in the fact that this universe is a loop, because it failed its quote-unquote, for lack of a better term, ascension. So we had to repeat it again, which would explain a lot. And this is both mentioned by Robertson and Ken Ogre, who was the pilot. And both of those things ring true to me. It isn't something that LRH mentioned. I don't hold it against him that he did or did not mention it. It's just, if it's true for me, it's true for me. If it's not true for somebody else, hey, I can have that completely. So that's another thing that has to be taken into consideration. It's the fact that maybe you've been in this whole loop before, and that's where you get the
deja vu, the whole deja vu. So you're saying, so you're saying a deja vu, the whole possible past life thing, or the idea that auditing opened up my awareness and my ability to tap into other universes or something, other parallel.
There are other experiences. Maybe there's more than one loop. Maybe it's an alternate universe that's running in tandem. Maybe it's an alternate universe that was 16 centillion years ago. I mean, but thetan has an unlimited memory capacity. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that it could be. What's the significance of it? Not a whole lot. What's significant right now is, from the standpoint, is that you are in present time, is that you're in this body on the and this is your main perceptive point. So you should view everything from that and just kind of admire these idiosyncrasies that come up, like the Mandela Effect. It's not going to have any effect on you, other than that you're going to say, hey, well, Sinbad played, what was it he played? I think one of the Mandela Effect things was...
Oh, the Shazam or something like that.
Yeah. Right. I mean, you have to look at it from the viewpoint of the butterfly effect. If you're already realizing it, the butterfly effect already happened.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. What about bodies in porn? I've heard this idea that they're on Mars is there's bodies like literally like the Matrix that are in, like, sleeping in homeostasis or whatever, and when we die we wake up at those bodies and then we get programmed to sent back here to Earth again. And what it is I think it's kind of like it's a really good way to run a prison, because then I guess when the person, if they didn't have these bodies in porn, then when the person on Earth died, it's possible they could, as a spirit, become free again. But then if they have to be commanded to come back to this other body, like, you give them 2 balls and chain instead of 1. Do you know what I mean? Am I right about this, or what's going on here?
Yeah, well, the whole thing about a body in pawn is it's an expression derived from the game of chess, where the pawn goes to the end of the competitor's board and can become anything, whether it's a queen, which is the most powerful piece, or one of the other pieces. So in that mind, what is happening is that the thetan has been implanted prior to coming to the planet, taking up a body, living that life, and then when they drop the body that they're currently in, they get sent back to an implant station, be it on Mars or be it the moon or Venus or wherever. It doesn't really matter because for a thetan it doesn't have any distance. But the whole idea is that the person is put into a body that's in a coma or stasis or whatever, and that's the way that you can implant them is through pain drug hypnosis, because they're connected to the body. If they're not connected to the body, they're much more difficult to implant because they have to agree to be in that body. So they basically throw them in the body with force, keep them in the body with force, apply force to that body that is in one that they're in. Whatever commands it is that they want to put in there, install reactive mind or trigger the original installation of the reactive mind, throw some extra command phrases in there and say, okay, get out of here, and shove them out of the body, which was triggering. And the next person comes along, takes that body, and that thetan is sent to wherever they want them to go. That's the whole idea behind it. That's how it works.
So it cut out a little bit when you mentioned how the bodies in porn definition evolved. My idea was it was kind of like when you pawn something in one of those shops, you put it in there and then you can come back and get it with money in the future or something like that. So can you explain the whole chess thing again?
Well, the whole chess thing is that when you reach the other end of the board with a pawn, okay, P-A-W-N, the smallest and most prevalent piece in a game of chess, that pawn can become anything. Okay? It can become a queen, a rook, a knight, any of those pieces. So what's happening is that pawn is becoming something else. So what you're taking at thetan is you're saying, he was Bill, and he died on a Sunday from a heart attack, and the thetan that was known as Bill has a command where he is, which he got before he became Bill, is impelled to return back to wherever this station is with these bodies in pawn in order to keep them playing the same game so that you can keep control of them. And once you get them back in this body that is not theirs and is not them, you see how that works with it's actually the guy is actually a pawn, but he might be a queen in that body. That's where the whole idea comes from. That's where a pawn shop comes from. That's where the term pawn comes from in the first place. But that's the whole idea, is that you're getting them to be something else other than they are. So you're trading one body in for another. So they're taking that body and they're being slammed into it. They've been given electronic stimulus, drugs, pain, whatever. They have all kinds of methods. Anything with a lie behind it, because that's how you control a thetan, is with lies alone. Okay, so while you're doing that pain drug hypnosis type thing to the body, anything that's unpleasant to the body, while the body has a reactive mind, they have that reactive mind in the body. That reactive mind goes with the thetan. And then you get into the upper level stuff that goes on beyond that, which we won't get into, but it can be a very complex thing. But the thing is that complexity is what they want. Simplicity, which is what Scientology gives, is what they don't want.
Simplicity. They don't want simplicity, right?
Right. They don't want simplicity. They want complexity, because for anything to persist, there's a lie behind it.
Yeah.
Complexity by its nature is a lie, because everything in the physical universe and the theta universe is actually quite simple.
Yeah. Confusion keeps people keeps people trapped, because then they have to work out what the hell the confusion was, and they just give up and they just continue being a slave. So this is an interesting idea. So it's like it's a whole control system. It's like you take a being that's maybe already in a body or not in a body, and you you take that being, and let's say his name's Bill or whatever, and he's from somewhere totally else, and then you program him, and you taken him, and his body's now in porn, and you program him, and you send him somewhere else, and then when he dies, he comes back, and then so it's like they've put Bill into porn, like in the chess thing, sort of. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that makes it even more confusing, which is, and strangely enough, there are a lot of parallels to that in the original Blade Runner screenplay and Philip K. Dick's book, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. And that's one of the key ideas and why Blade Runner resonates with people as much as it does, is because it parallels this particular situation.
Are you talking about the movie or the book?
Both.
Because
the movie is based off of the book, and the ideas are the same in the book.
Because in the movie, I don't really remember much talk about bodies in porn or anything.
Well, the thing is that the concept is the same, because in the movie, they're given memories that aren't theirs.
Wow, man! When I watched it, it must have totally gone over my head. I didn't follow along with that. Yeah, that would be why I didn't really like it, because people. I was always like, why are people so into this movie? But like, anyway, so what exactly happens?
Well, I mean, these androids, they're basically born as adults, and they need to have stable data. So what they did is they had, well, you find out in the second movie. I don't want to give any spoilers away for people that have.
Yeah, don't give it away, because I want to see the second movie. Yeah.
Yeah, which is excellent, by the way. These memories are installed into the replicants so that they have something to base their life off of that they think is theirs. But the thing is it's a lie. It's not their track. It's not their pictures. It's not them at all. It's something that was installed when they actually have nothing. And in the book and in the movie, they go into that at length. But when they don't do that, they go crazy because they don't have anything to compare to. It's just, boom, here they are, this thetan put into a body, and they have no track, which really messes them up. So there are a lot of parallels there, along with bodies in pawn and things like that. But this was done for a less nefarious reason in the movie, whereas what LRH talks about in the briefing course is a means of control. And it isn't anything new. It's just the most recent iteration of technology that's been handed down or uncovered or re-uncovered and re-uncovered and re-uncovered and altered a little bit. It's been going on for trillinia in one form or another, at least in the physical universe. In the theta universe, there are things like that too. But the biggest problem is that the guys that do these sorts of things in planning in the physical universe really have no idea what it is that they're dealing with. And the ones that did way back on the track caused the most trouble for the being that we are now having to handle
with auditing.
Further, I guess, with auditing presently, because people tend to look at time starting in their lifetime and going forward, when the fact of the matter is that we're in the end of the fourth act. Strangely enough, this has been going on for a very, very long time, and it's nothing new, but people tend to look at the last 10,000 years and, okay, well, this is when things started, when the actual fact of the matter is that is extremely not the case. You're looking at about 300 zeros worth of time.
Yeah, we've been born into like the most incredibly complex and long science fiction saga, and we've just been popped into the middle of it, and you can't remember anything, and you're trying to work out what the hell has happened, and it's like you don't know who that character is and what's going on in the storyline, and you just totally whoa. So in that movie Blade Runner, they put spiritual beings into robot bodies.
Well, they didn't necessarily put spiritual beings into robot bodies. They don't really cover that aspect of it in the book or in the movie. But the thing is that if you were a parallel would be somebody who is in a coma, and the person that's in that body got tired of it or just fed up, or maybe they got kicked out in an accident or something like that, and there's nobody home. There's just the genetic entities running the body, but there's no superior being running the whole thing, the I, or the thetan. And so somebody comes along and picks up that body that's in a coma. Well, then in this particular situation, in this story, in Blade Runner, these thetans come along and pick up these adult bodies as soon as they've aged enough and been created, but yet they have no track and they don't know how to operate off of this. So they had to develop a storyline for them that was believable and give them something to have comparable magnitudes to. That's the whole idea of the story. And when these replicants find this out, they're upset and they feel betrayed and they're angry and want to come after their creators, which is understandable because they've been lied to. It's a very similar situation to what we're dealing with in Scientology, because we're being told the situation is something that it isn't. And, if you wanted to just take it to the extreme, the reason why we're here is if you had a universe full of Gandalfs who could go around and do all kinds of interesting things and postulate things and put things there, it creates a big mess because the physical universe responds in kind. And so you've got people creating all kinds of things, and that's part of the reason why the debris is here. It isn't that it started with a big bang. It may have started with a big bang, but it wasn't the type of big bang that they're saying. Once that happened, you've got all these beings that can create all kinds of things. And the fact of the matter is what we're dealing with now in the fourth act is the physical universe, which is the debris from all of the Gandalfs, if you will. That's the way I can describe it. And then when you have people going around creating stuff all the time and others want to control them, well, you've got to get them to stop being the Gandalfs that they are, if you will. So that's how the whole thing got started. And that was a long, 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 long time ago. But the abilities are still there. It's just that they've become degraded by the ones that wanted to control them because they were making a mess of things. Or at least in their mind, they were making a mess. That's how the whole thing got started in the physical universe. And what we have now in present time is the leftovers. That's what we're dealing with. So you've got to keep these guys from getting their abilities back. Like Ellerate says, within a couple of lifetimes, if they don't go to an implant station, they start to get their abilities back fairly quickly because you can't keep a good thetan down. And that's really the truth. And that's why this whole thing is occurring the way that it is, and you have to have them go back and tell them lies and pain, drug, hypnosis, and a body and pawn and all of that stuff.
Yeah, well,
that's my reality.
Yeah, well, I feel it's like a thetan is like a tree. You just leave it and it just grows. So in order to have this thetan and not become Gandalf, not become fancy OT, you have to keep on doing the implants and twisting them and confusing them. And I guess it's like a plant. Yeah. It's like a plant, tricking the plant with artificial light, like making it grow sideways and downwards and putting chemicals around the plant and all this sort of stuff so it never grows into a proper tree. I think you read the Blade Runner book before you watched the movie, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I get it, yeah, because you got a whole better understanding of it. I think maybe the movie cuts out a bit of this more of the background information and the understandings of the book.
Yeah, the second movie gets into it a lot more to explain the areas that they didn't cover in the first movie, or maybe ended up on the editing room floor, which very well may be the case. But the second one really kind of circles the wagons and gets it into a perspective where you can go, okay, I get it now. And it really does it justice, so I highly recommend it.
Yeah, and because I always thought, I never quite liked it, but I loved Philip K. Dick's stuff. Like, I mean, his stuff is just incredible. There's a movie that was made called Radio Free Albemuth or something. Albemuth. Radio Free Albemuth or whatever. And that wasn't like a big Hollywood thing. It was more an independent film. But that was just like, whoa, And Total Recall was really cool because I feel it was like Philip K. Dick combined with the other people who wrote it who were geniuses as well, and they really made something really, really good. Anyway, getting off topic. But anyway, this sort of technology sounds out there and crazy and all this sort of stuff. But if you know about pain drug hypnosis, if you know about, how the government, will inject someone, then hypnotize them, or secret parts of the government or CIA or whatever, and then you can wipe their memories and you can program them to go and assassinate someone or whatever. This is all just, a million years advanced upon the pain drug hypnosis. It's like this is what it evolves into. They invent electronics, and more years go past and more scientists work on it. They invent better drugs, and then eventually ends up becoming this absolutely wild science fiction shit that we're talking about now.
Yeah, well, it all comes down to the fact that it's Scientology basics, at least from my viewpoint, that low-toned beings do low-toned things, and they despise people who are higher-toned and have more ability, and want to keep them down. And that's pretty much been the game from day one. And the only way to get around that is to be able to choose your people or choose your beings and things like that, and try and get out of the trap as best you can and help as many as you can, because you won't get out of the trap alone. And that's what Scientology is all about.
Yeah, and I believe the whole of our existence has like become a trap, because I mean, so you think of something like with some internet dating sites, for example. There can be scammers on that, right? So like some Nigerian scam or something that tries to milk money out of some guy who thinks he's going to be marrying a woman in Thailand or something. But then there's also the actual internet dating site themselves, who could be using fake people to try and get people to sign up for membership. So the guy signs onto the dating site and he thinks it's fantastic that these girls are talking to him, but they're just like some Indian guy that's been paid $2 an hour by the dating site to try and, keep his membership going up. So see how that's a little trap in itself, and it's a bit of shifty dodginess, right? That some people don't even know about. They don't even know about that. But then what about in this industry? What about in that industry? What about when you want to go paint a wall? What about when you want to go learn OT abilities? Like, there's when there's shiftiness comes into the situation, and when I don't know, it must be just there must just be a lot of the people in our population that are willing to do shifty stuff. I mean, that's what it must be. But you get shiftiness just everywhere, and you get lies that build upon lies, and the next minute you've got a huge trap where everything is a muddle and everything's a confusion, everything is a mess, and you have to sit down, start clearing your words, start looking into things, and work out, pick one thing at a time, like out of Problems, a workbook, one thing at a time, and just work out what the hell is going on. And then after 10 years, you'll actually be able to sit back and go, now I'm actually starting to understand what's going on.
Right. Well, to me, the best thing that a person can do, the royal you, is to run up the bridge, not walk. And a lot of these things you'll just know what you're dealing with, and that these sorts of things exist. They're just rampant, especially in this day and age. The degradation is wholesale for the almighty altruism of a fiat currency that has no value and all of that. And this is all part of a particular society that is controlling this planet for whatever reason. So money is a lie, and you don't need it. And there are lots of better ways to get along with each other and be able to survive. But the current money situation on this planet is put there in order to control people and prevent them from looking and prevent them from surviving well, because they always have to chase their tail in order to survive. And the elite profit, where 99% of the population is suppressed. That's the deal. That's why it's so dodgy. That's the game.
It's so complex, and like, for example, I don't want to talk much about this, right? But even World War II, right? I'm not saying Hitler was a good guy, but I mean, England started it. Like, Hitler was taking back parts of Poland that had Germans in there, and England said in 1939, they said, "We declare war on Germany." That, you know what I mean? Like, as in, it takes two to tango, it takes two to start the fight. It's so ridiculous, but everyone has this idea that, like, it was just totally the Germans were just these monsters just went around and started all these fights and stuff. You don't understand that Russia was doing this to fight, to antagonize people, and England and America were doing this to, like, start a fight, and it was a team effort. Like, it's just so stupid, everything's just in a confusion and a lie.
Sure. Well, all of the wars on this planet are provided, and it's all operated through the overt motivator sequence. And, the non-logical term for that would be problem, reaction, solution. Create the problem, get the reaction you want, pose the solution you want. And that's exactly what it is. Gulf of Tonkin for Vietnam, for the United States. Every war, police action, or conflict that we've been in since we've been a country in the United States literally was started by a banker. And the product of the United States is war and death and carnage and profiteering by the industrial military complex. Eisenhower said it. JFK said it better. That's just what it is, and that's all low-tonedness. It's all dramatization of things on the track. A lot of OT2 materials there and that sort of a thing. And the only way it's going to change, and this has been the way it's been in many, many, many civilizations prior to this one, is for people to take responsibility for themselves and others and get up the bridge. And, Scientology doesn't have all of the answers, but it's a really, really good start. And it's one of the better starts on this planet. And if we don't do something about it, it will be snuffed out, too, before too long. And I'm not talking about the corporate church of Scientology. I'm talking about Scientology, the subject.
I heard something really interesting, and I haven't looked into it much more, but I heard about something about in the 80s or something. There was like one of these, metaphysical or psychic bookstores that would have funky information in it, and some people came in and took out the good information or deleted good information from the books or something. And people were like, what the hell? Basically, it was, and the same thing was happening in Scientology, in that information in Scientology was getting taken out and changed or whatever. I don't know, man. I don't know much more about that. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, what happened? What I'm saying is,
a common thing on the track.
Yeah, well, it seems like we look at what happened with the Scientology and its tech, that some things, people came in and took out information secretly. Well, it seems like the same thing has happened with all these other practices.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. The Catholic Church has sanitized things. The Roman Empire sanitized things before the Catholic Church existed. It goes on and on and on and on and on and on. History is written by the winner, not the loser of the war, and that's just the way that it is.
Yeah, but it seems like this happened in the 80s or something. I don't know if it was the 80s, early 90s or something. But it's interesting because he's still there, John?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah. So that brings me on to the Markabian thing, in that it's like, is this like the new order? Like this new thing came in the 80s where suddenly it was a big like cleansing out, and so like, do you know much about the Markabians, and did they invade or something in the 80s or?
Well, I know that LRH mentioned that, and I think Janet touched on that in her interview.
Yeah.
I had heard from other people at some point that LRH had said something on that. My knowingness is that is what occurred. And these guys are sort of like the galactic bankers, similar to what you see in Game of Thrones or Star Wars. There's always a banker behind the scene that's lending both sides money, and that's how they're profiting. Well, that's basically what the Markabians are like. Unfortunately, they're very solid citizens, and for the most part, they look just like you and me. So, as far as the physical universe goes, so I don't know how much of a role they played in that, but I do know that here in Kansas City, back when the whole Mission Holders Conference thing went on and everything, that there was a huge hullabaloo about the Markabians had taken over the church. I don't know where that came from, but I heard it an awful lot when I was on staff from people who had left the church or mission at that time in Kansas City, because things had changed so much. Now, whether they really knew what they were talking about or not, I don't know. But it's a prison planet, and the inmates are running out. And if any inkling of anything comes back to the people that put it here or had something to do with it, they're not going to let the inmates leave the asylum. And the Markabians played a role in that at one point in time back on the track. They weren't the main player, but they were one of the players.
Hey, so at this time of the Mission Holders Conference, what post were you at? And so were you involved with the mission?
I was a kid at the time of the Mission Holders Conference. I didn't become aware of that until I got out in 2004. I did see the results of it very clearly as to what happened here in Kansas City.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. I don't want to go into that Mission Holder Conference.
That's the only thing.
I don't want to go into Mission Holder Conference, but so even as a kid, you were hearing stuff, I guess, from the adults about this Markabian thing. It's just so interesting because in the Mission Earth science fiction saga, Hubbard talks about a race of aliens that look exactly like us and are corrupted exactly like us, like in the same sort of way, like, strippers and steroids and sports and
it's a very similar society.
Yeah, and they planned to take over Earth as part of their invasion schedule, right? But like it's a long-term thing, and before you land in the ships and say, this is our planet or whatever, it's a long-term process. Like you do surveys, and then I imagine you would send, secret agents in there and establish it and all that sort of stuff. And so I feel like it hasn't become official yet, but we've been secretly infiltrated by this other race that's setting things up. It's like planting the seeds, I guess, so that then when they announce it, everyone won't go, that's bullshit, I don't want to become part of the Markabians. You know what I mean? Like, will already sort of be like them, and then it'll get announced, and then it'll be like, well, they're already sort of like us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, a parallel would be the John Carpenter film, Them.
They Live, or Them?
They Live, I think is what it was. They Live, where, they kind of look like skeletons and things like that. I'm sorry, the movie name that I mentioned was actually about a race of incredibly large ants.
Is that a John Carpenter movie?
No, it's not. It came out in the 50s.
Oh, yeah.
So, completely different movie, completely different screenplay. But, a lot of the things that you see in movies here on planet Earth are used to instruct, are used to get you flattened out or pacified on something or to take on ideas. It doesn't really matter if they're coming, if they're here, whatever. It doesn't matter if there are 52 races of or species of life forms that are coming here in different modes of transportation. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. And the reason for that is it isn't going to make any big change, and they're not going to make changes here. It's all going to be really, really, really slow, and you probably wouldn't notice it within 20 years. Doesn't matter. Because if you go the adverse effect of it, you're finished. And you're going to be that much more of a potential trouble source to the whole thing, which is exactly what you don't want to do. It doesn't matter. It's interesting. There's no doubt about that. It's really, really interesting. But the fact of the matter is you need to keep your eye on the ball, and that is get up the bridge. All of this background noise about what's going on with the aliens and everything, that's all good and fine, and it's really cool to see the technology that shows up on YouTube if in fact it really is real footage. But it isn't going to change anything. And it took me a long, long time to realize that, because I used to be very electrified by the alien stuff myself, but it doesn't matter a lick. Just get up the bridge, and the rest of it will all come clear. Because these guys, let me give you an example. Everything that's going on here on Earth is the same thing that's going on galactically. It's a shit show, okay, for the most part. There are some civilizations who are extremely advanced and are very OT, but those civilizations aren't going to come within many, many light years of this planet, because this place is a dead zone, and they don't want to have anything to do with it. It's a trash heap. They don't need to come here. There's nothing here for them because they're not part of the physical universe. any of the guys that are coming here who are coming in advanced craft that's part of the physical universe, or they're manipulating a couple universes to get from one place to the other through wormholes or whatever technology that's far beyond anything that we could even describe in the English language, you probably don't want to have anything to do with anyway, because they're part of the universal shit show that is the physical universe. That is what we are trying to handle in Scientology. Okay? So that's what I would tell everyone. Yeah, it's great and it's fun to talk about and all of that stuff, but at the end of the day, how far have you progressed up the bridge? What have you gotten done that's going to allow you to have more ability, more perception, more knowingness, more ARC for all of the other beings that are in the same mess as you? It isn't talking about UFOs and what they can do and what this alien race looks like and blah, blah, blah. Because there's tons of that data out there, and it's on the internet, and I'm fully aware of, the Andromedans, I'm fully aware of the Pleiadians, I'm fully aware of the guys that are not carbon-based, all this. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all, because it doesn't change anything. It might as well be a science fiction novel. What matters is getting your ass out the bridge.
Yeah, and that's why I like... Yeah, that's why I like Scientology the most, because, there's the... Corey Good, who talks about blue avians, and you might hear some interesting philosophical ideas being expressed, but it's kind of just like, who cares about blue avians? You know what I mean? Like, regardless of whether or not it's true, it's just like, yeah. What's that going to do? It just goes over the average Joe's head. It's just like, what the hell? But what doesn't, though, is someone saying, look up a word in a dictionary. Like, that is just so important and fundamental. And powerful.
Yeah.
But I know we shouldn't spend much time on it. But I do want to finish up though. What was I going to say? What have you heard any stories about UFOs and LIH?
I have not. I know that obviously he was aware of that sort of thing, but I've never heard anything myself directly. And if I did, I would tell you that I'm not aware of any.
What about, and might be a little bit, what about something about like a Night Watch and Captain Bill and cross-dressing and Ashtar? Do you know anything about this sort of stuff?
I've seen certain, bits and pieces of things. Whatever was going on with LRH and whatever his viewpoint on things. My stable datum is the technology that he created. Beyond that, I really don't care. Captain Bill, same thing. I don't really subscribe to all of the space opera stuff that he talks about. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, but I think that the important thing is the workable tech. And the rest of it, you can make your mind up for yourself. You should somebody else's word on it. And beyond, every being has their own track. And that doesn't necessarily mean that my track is the same as everybody else's track. I might have been in a different part of the physical universe. Or I might have been in a different universe. Who knows? So I don't necessarily subscribe to a lot of that stuff. When I did Excalibur, reality... it wasn't necessarily my reality, but the tech worked like gangbusters.
When you say it worked, you mean you got wind from the tech? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I got lots. I got tons of wins from the tech on Excalibur, but I don't necessarily subscribe to all of the incidents that he mentions on the track that were there. They just, They weren't real to me. Some of them were real to some of the parts of that case. Not a lot, but some of them were. And that's all that matters, is be aware of the fact that this might have been a principal incident on the track for some or part of your composite case. Doesn't necessarily mean that it holds true for you. If it reads on the meter, run it. That's all there is to it. And that's my litmus test. If there's charge there and it's a reading item, it's a reading situation, whatever you're dealing with, okay, it's real to somebody. It might not be real to me, but it's a composite case. So I just have to look at it and not evaluate it for anything other than what it is.
Okay, well, yeah, that's kind of, it's kind of like that with all of Scientology. It's just like you just do whatever works, and it doesn't necessarily matter if that memory was actually real or not. What about, I mean, you mentioned the pilot earlier. So does the pilot have this idea as well that like we've experienced all this before and we're doing it all again for a second time?
Well, that in some of the materials that I saw, I haven't gone in session on any of his materials. I've looked at a good chunk of them, and it didn't re-stimulate me or anything like that. It was sort of like reading History of Man. Somebody says, well, that would be squirrel to read the pilot stuff because he's not LRH. Well, okay, I have a disagreement with that, because the fact of the matter is that LRH pooled all of this stuff together from lots of different places and came up with new ideas. And if somebody else does that and it's workable and it rings true to you, well, there's nobody that can stop you on that. And I look at some of the people that do that with Scientology as gatekeepers. They don't look any further than what LRH said, and that's what's happening here in the U.S. with a lot of the CBR stuff is, don't look, he was a squirrel, he wore a feather and a hat and a cape, all this stuff. That doesn't mean anything. What matters is that it works. And so a lot of the CBR stuff works. The pilot stuff rings true to me. I haven't run it or anything like that, but it rang true. So, and there's a reason that he ended up at the bottom of the pool with a couple of concrete blocks tied to his feet. I don't believe that the guy killed himself at all.
What age was he when this happened?
I'd have to say he's probably in his 60s. He was in the mid 2000s that he died. He was living in the Clearwater area. It was class.
Oh, the pilot was in the Clearwater area.
Yeah, he lived in the Clearwater, vicinity of Clearwater or Clearwater itself.
So didn't he used to sort of be in the Europe area?
I don't know. I don't recall much about his past. I do know that he was respected by many in the field, and he ran into a lot of the same things that CBR ran into, which is you get this don't look, it's squirrel sort of thing. And, when that sort of thing starts happening, that's when you have to go, what? Because there's usually somebody decrying it for a reason, and it isn't a good one. That's my viewpoint on it.
Did he leave a suicide note?
Not to my knowledge. It was a very curious situation where the local police department deemed it a suicide, and they never did look into it. That makes it even more fishy. And he was a very nice person, from what I understand. I know people that knew him, and he was a very kind guy, and he was looking into things that were revelatory to those who did not want them revealed. I believe that's my opinion, and that's my knowingness. Much like CBR.
Okay, yeah. I know. I'm suspicious about CBR as well. What's the word? What exactly was the pilot doing at the time? Because I'm trying to work out, was it possibly OSA, or was he exposing CIA? Was he doing other stuff, or was he just purely Scientology that it was a whistleblower for?
I think he was just doing researching areas, which is what he was known for. He was researching areas that were real to him, and at the time, the internet was about 10 years old, and they couldn't clamp down on him that way, and he was getting people to look in areas that they didn't want them.
Yeah, but Scientology-related areas are you talking about? Scientology stuff are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm talking about technical areas, things on the past track. He was developing processes that made people a lot more able. He was put out there, which really pisses off the establishment. He was putting the data out there for free, Free, He wasn't charging anybody for it. And that's the most dangerous individual. LRH was one of those guys too, up to a point that the church got taken over. I can't say for CBR. I don't know much about that particular lineage on the whole thing, but I'm sure it was fairly cost effective. But that's the thing. When you get people giving out diamonds for free as far as spiritual enhancement and empowerment, then they become a big threat and they need to be taken care of in the bad guy's eyes.
Okay. Well, was he really starting to get indie missions set up, or really pushing the indie movement?
All he was doing was publishing his findings on the internet, and he was publishing his processes on the internet. That was enough. And
wow,
even at that point in time, the powers that be know how many what website is getting how many views and how it's getting spread around and all of that stuff. I mean, that's the only reason the internet exists. It isn't because it's an empowering thing, because the powers that be aren't going to allow that sort of thing to go on. I used to wonder why the internet was allowed to develop and expand and become what it is today. But what it is today is not what it was 20 years ago.
So my
research and
well, my idea is that they had to let it get popular and get in use and everything, so that then they could control it and have everyone, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's what it's become.
Yeah, control mechanism.
If you want to, you can go to anybody that has a website can look at exactly the mannerisms and what the person is looking at on that website at any given moment in real time. Now, 20 years ago, you couldn't do that. But you had the hard data, but you didn't have that capability. But now, you can look at whatever somebody's looking at on a website. You can see what they're scrolling to. You can see where they stop, what they're reading. There's heat maps as to where their mouse is.
So it's a telescreen. It's a telescreen.
Yeah. I mean, it's a window into what the person's thinking, what the person's reading, and that's what it's become. It's a Big Brother tool, unfortunately, and it's a mass merchandising tool as well. It isn't for research and all of that. All of the positive things, for the most part, have been removed, unfortunately.
So with the what positive things have been removed? Just quickly tell me that.
Well, like I mentioned several times in our conversations, the hardest thing to spot is a missingness. If people use things for Google, and they're looking for something on Google, Google is going to show them what Google wants them to see. Okay? It didn't used to be that way. It was a lot different 15, 20 years ago.
What was it like?
Well, I mean, you could go and look for something, and there it was. But now Google gives you what Google thinks you want, or what Google wants to give you. And if you don't play by Google's rules, you aren't on Google. Period. Google will ban you, and for all intents and purposes, you don't exist to the nearly 8 billion people on the planet, because if you can't find it on Google, you don't exist. So they're fundamentally altering the reality of the people that they are having as users. We are the commodity. That's what it's become. And that's how they control people. That's how they control Scientology. And one of the things I wanted to touch on is the issue of net neutrality. If the FCC gets their way, Scientology in the field as we know it is going to find it extremely hard to continue. And that's why it's extremely important for everybody. Because what's going to happen is you're going to have a couple of players who are going to speed up and slow things down, dependent upon who's paying them in order to have that information. So if you imagine Google was bad enough, this takes it times 100.
No way.
They're only going to...
Whoa.
Yeah.
Because they're pretty bad. They're pretty bad now. Like even the podcast's website. So I've tried to click on it sometimes, and that little monkey picture error comes up, and it just doesn't allow you to click on it. And I imagine that's something to do with OSA paying Google or something, so that people can't click on it. So what are you saying that this net neutrality? What's this net neutrality thing now? What's this?
Well, here in the United States, a former lawyer for Verizon, which is one of the big three cell phone companies here in the United States, is now the head of the Federal Communications Commission in the United States. And here this week, they're going to try and pass, they're basically going to do away with net neutrality, which gives a level playing field for all of the people on the internet, whether it's Netflix or it's Google or it's Wikipedia or it's Facebook or whatever. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it where if you are trying to watch Netflix and Netflix isn't paying one of the companies that is providing that bandwidth, Netflix has to give them money or they slow down their internet speed. Now, take that and do the math, and if you're talking about things like, Scientology, Project Camelot, Project Avalon, Jeff Rince's website, these sorts of things that are a little less unpopular and tend to make waves, they're going to slow that stuff down real quick. And they already know, and they have it classified, whether it's a torrent of LRH's lectures or whether it's my website or if it's something that you've got on YouTube or whatever. They know all of this information, and they'll slow it down. And what happens is they'll eventually choke off all of the dandelions in the field until they've replaced it with a type of grass seed that makes only the type of grass that they want grow.
So hold on.
The end of the internet as we know.
So you're saying this is like the corporate takeover of the internet because only rich corporations can afford to pay this bribe or whatever to actually come up in Google search engines? But what about the other search engines?
Well, the thing is Google's portion of the search industry on the internet is basically about 96, 97%. Bing doesn't come close. Yahoo doesn't come close because Yahoo uses Bing. All of the search engines that we used to have back in the late 90s, early 2000s, it's come down to Google and Bing and Yahoo. I mean, there just aren't that many anymore. It's like 5 companies own all of the radio stations, TV stations, and most of the printed media companies in the United States. 5 companies. So the same thing is going to happen to the internet if this passes here in the U.S. And that is really going to put a crimp in our style as Scientologists because our data is going to be slowed down. So I've been saying for months that if you want the Scientology materials, download them now and save it in 6 places. That's not on the internet. Someplace that you have it.
When's this all happening?
This week.
Like, as in they're going to pass this law? Is it for America or all over the world, or what?
Well, it's for America, and I think America will be the litmus test as to whether if they can get it through here, then they'll push it through in the EU and then Australia and all that slowly but surely. But this is sort of a dry run. If they can get it past us, they're home free. That's at least what they think.
Okay, so already I imagine they're probably doing this with the sites where you can download LIH tech from, where you click on it and it just doesn't work. I assume that's happening to other people because it's happening to my stuff. So it's basically another form of attack as well, in that you just won't be able to find it. You
won't be able to find it, or it's going to take insanely long amount of time to get something.
The speed, the internet. And so if you do find it, the speed will be slower as well.
Yeah, because they're going to throttle anything. Basically, you have to pay the ferryman. It's the same business model for the entire internet in the United States as we have now here in the U.S. and worldwide, where you get a 20 gigabyte allotment. And if you want any more than 20 gigabytes, you've got to pay the ferryman to get more than that. And that's what they're going to do with the internet at large. It's the next big jump so that they can control and make more money off of the most popular things. Netflix isn't one of those players, and they're trying to get all of their subscribers to say to their congressmen and representatives that they don't want this thing to pass because it's going to send the price of
Netflix
Hulu, Netflix, all this stuff way up because they're going to have to pay more money to pay the ferryman in order to get their zeros and ones from them to eat. And anybody that doesn't pay the ferryman, well, the ferry only goes so far. It goes really, really slow. So this is the next big move by Big Brother to control and enslave and all that stuff, because the Internet's gotten to a size now that they have to pay attention to it and they have to monetize it for the 1%, basically.
It must make it a lot more expensive for people who want to have websites and these sorts of things. It's just going to put the price up heaps, isn't it? Unless you want to be really, really small and unusual that no one's really going to reach anyway, so you get the first 20 gig free or whatever, right? So, but if you ever want to really do something, it's basically like putting up your utility bills.
Yeah, well, it'll come to basically, if somebody wants to have a website, their website's going to cost them basically what it would cost them to have an apartment or pay a mortgage on a house. And if you're a big business, it's going to cost you a lot more than that, because you're going to have to pay for that bandwidth in order to get people onto your site and to take things off of your site. And basically what it is controlling information, controlling knowledge, which controls who has the power. That's the end game on the whole thing. And Scientology is a very powerful technology, and if this passes, things are going to get slowed down a lot, especially on the torrents. Those will be the first things to go, which is one of the main lines of dissemination that we have outside of the church for materials.
So I sort of knew this was coming, because I was looking at it and I was thinking, I saw what they did with the whole trying to attack YouTube thing and make it so that anyone who's saying anything that sort of slightly could be construed as controversial, then they're demonetized, and that was a big attack on YouTube and stuff. But now I've known that they've obviously been wanting to somehow just shut down the internet or get in control of it, because it was too wild west.
Yeah, well, the way they've gotten around that is with keywords. So, and this gets down to data series type concepts, so I'll try and keep it as simple as I can. And it isn't a matter of what the keywords are, it's that the individuals who control the priority, the arbitrary significance of keywords, are the ones that are in power. It doesn't matter what the keywords are. It's just the fact that they say that they have the importance that they do. This is something we've seen with our own websites and everything like that. So he who controls the significance, the arbitrary significance of the semantics of the internet communication, which is keywords, is the one that's in power. So that's what it all comes down to, which, again, interestingly enough, is Scientology and Student Hat and LRH, is it all comes down to semantics. It all comes down to symbolism, because words are symbols. That's how they're going to end up controlling this thing, because the keywords are what control what ends up first on Google or ends up as the 1,234,536 entry on page 537 on Google or whatever.
Okay, so so back in like 1999, it was more that if you search something, it came up high if it was more popular. But now you're saying that it's going to be not that at all. It doesn't matter about popularity.
No, popularity doesn't have anything to do with it at all. It has to do with the popularity of the keywords that Google adds an arbitrary significance to. Okay, do you see what I'm saying? So a keyword, red, let's say the word red, Google says, well, red is extremely important to us. It doesn't matter that it means what it means, it's just that it's red, because they said that it's important. It doesn't matter what red means.
So they'll
It
make
doesn't
red
matter
come
what the
up
definition is.
in a search. They'll make red come up higher.
Yeah, because they said it's important.
So
See what I'm saying?
if you're rich, you can just pay them, and they'll make you more important.
Well, that's what it's coming down to, is these keywords. Okay, so it's coming down to literally not dictionary definitions of words. It's coming down to what they say this word means. Now, if you want me to take this a step further and blow your mind, they're rewriting the English dictionary language.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Right. So they can send the society in whatever direction they want to,
yeah.
because they control the dictionary, the semantics, and the lexicon of people that are using it.
Okay, can you give me an example of that?
Well, let me think here. Give me a second.
Well, what about spiritual counseling or something like that, or independent Scientology? How could you... Well, maybe no.
Well, you just don't show it. You just don't show it. I mean, they can literally control whether something shows up or not on Google. If they don't want to show it and they think it's like with your videos, for example. That's a prime example. Okay? What was it, the one that you were talking about, transgender stuff? That all of a sudden stopped working?
Yeah.
Okay? That's a prime example. If they think it isn't going along with what their program is, what their agenda is, it just stops working. Google owns YouTube.
Yeah.
It could be as simple as that. But see, the thing is it goes deeper than that, because they're literally changing the definition of words based off of what they want to make them. Like Allure says, it's an arbitrary. Okay, I mean, in the English language, you look at a definition of a word, and you'll see that you get to the derivation, and it had absolutely nothing to do with the common day used definition in present time. It was something completely different, and maybe more often than not, it was Latin. So this is what we're seeing, but instead of it taking thousands of years, it's literally overnight, based off of the agenda of Google, because Google is the world's dictionary now.
Yeah.
Any other dictionary is subservient to a search engine. I mean, this is what's happened. So the importance, relatively speaking, of the independent or free zone Scientology movement, I mean, they can wipe it off the map by slowing things down, by not showing it in the search engine, or simply by saying, okay, well, the website doesn't have any keywords on it. It doesn't have any keywords. There's none of these words are in the text, because that's what Google looks for, is they look for words in the text, the copy that you have on the website. So if you're talking about transgenderism on Google, 5, 6, 7 times you need to have that on your front page for Google to say, oh, they're talking about transgender. All right, so we're going to put them under that phylum of transgender. But the thing is they can also play that with other keywords, so then it won't show up. And then Google is a moving target as far as what their actual algorithm is. They change their algorithm all the time, so nobody figures it out. That's how they stay on top, because they keep altering it and changing the rules as time goes on so that they can stay on top. And that's what Google will do from here on out. They've figured that game out. The rest of it is who controls Google and what their agenda is. And their agenda isn't yours and my agenda. It's something completely different.
I know this is all true. I know it, because when I uploaded like a silly transgender vid, it lasted for like, I don't know, at least 6 hours or something. And then it's not like I got a warning, like, and it said, this is inappropriate, we're taking this down. I think it sort of said that. But also, my whole Facebook just played up, and it had, like, a virus. I think I had to, like... something weird went on. Like, I triggered some automatic program in the internet to attack what I'd done on Facebook. Like, it attacked it, and, like, it automatically was logging me out of Facebook. and it was just weird, you know. And I don't know, it's kind of strange because I thought, you know, you would think that they would just send you a message and say this is inappropriate, your video has been banned, but it was more than that. It was like, whoa, it was like, what the hell is going on here? Like, I actually thought in my head, I thought, have I pissed off some lefty that's like an internet nerd that saw it and then thought, I'm going to go and attack Andy and get him? But I don't think that was the case. Like, I know I pissed off some lefties, but I think it was more something that's like automatic, that's written into the program of Facebook or the internet or something, that when something like this is done, or when someone flags something like this, then these things will happen, and it'll trigger in and it'll attack it and it'll bring it down.
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes without saying that if Facebook can start creating AI programs to where the AI programs start communicating with each other in their own made-up language, to the point that Facebook has to shut the thing down and pull the cord on the whole thing, it's getting out. Obviously, it's within reason to say, if they want to do that with the American public or the world public at large, and feed them what it is they want to feed them and not feed them any information that enlightens them, vis-a-vis a search engine that everybody uses. I mean, you can look at a search engine as literally as an informational dictionary. It's not just for words. It's for concepts. It's for everything. And if there's a PDF on the internet, let's say it's the technical volumes of Scientology, there's AI out there that could take that information and they could change the PDF and then repost it and put it in the same place, and you'd never be the wiser.
Yeah.
It could be that bad. It could be that simple. And it may have already occurred because we've, you know, like we mentioned in some of the other shows, these things have already been noted that changes are occurring. So like LRH says, the hardest thing to spot is a missingness. And that's the deal, is it's already come that far. So what you're experiencing is
the missingness.
You're not crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah. You just, you know it. Like when you go to click on the podcast app or the website or whatever, and it occasionally just stuffs up. You know it's not some bullshit legitimate error. Like it's just there's more going on. So what if someone wants to download all of Scientology's materials, all of them? What's the best way to do that? The easiest and best way?
Well, I can't sanction any particular place just for the fact that I don't know if things have been altered yet or not, because I don't know what I don't know. But Matrix Files, you enter in Google Matrix Files Scientology, and that'll take you to a website that's a friend of mine, and he has a vast majority of all of the Scientology information that's available out in PDF and audio format. Scientolopedia also has torrents that they have a lot of the materials on that you can get, and not in forms of torrents. Also, they also have the books and things like that. A lot of things can be found on Facebook. There's a few secret groups out there that have a lot of hard to find materials too. So, and there's APIS has. I believe they have a downloadable area, and I think Ron's org does too, and all of that. But the fact of the matter is the material is only as good as you can read it. And something that's in ones and zeros, if we happen to have an EMP event or something like that, isn't going to do you much good. So I highly recommend that you get a hard copy of everything, especially the technical volumes, especially the OT levels. Don't read them until you're ready to do them, obviously. The L's, that sort of a thing. And get trained as an auditor as quick as you can, because they're really starting to tighten down on our rights for spiritual freedom, in my estimation.
So you'd probably say find on eBay or that tech library or something, or just wherever you can, secondhand or whatever, buy as much physical copy of the tech as you can, and then also get all the tech in digital form.
Yeah, get it as soon as you can, as fast as you can, because who knows how long it'll it'll still be available. I mean, that's my concern. That's my knowingness. And looking into the future, I think it's going to be a very hard to find commodity. And hard copy is superior to digital copy if you can get it.
Speaking of the future, it sounds like you got a bit of a bleak opinion of the future. What's the deal with that?
Well, I don't know that I would call it bleak, but luck favors the prepared, and LRH says there's only two ways to be wrong, which is one of my favorite quotes, and that is over or underestimation of effort. So if you looked at the tech library type thing and you underestimated what was going to go wrong, and then you couldn't get it anymore, how would you feel? Well, you underestimated the situation. I'd much rather overestimate and have 3 copies of everything, 2 hard and 1 digital, or several digital in several places, but a paper copy is going to help you a lot more than something that needs electrons to push it around to show you. And I'm not all doom and gloom on everything either, but I'd much rather overestimate than under.
I was listening to some stuff by David Icke, and he was saying how he really thinks that the good side's going to win. Like he really thinks that, and he refuses. He didn't say the word postulate, but he sort of refuses to postulate that that the Orwellian police state will come in. And I've been a bit, I don't know what to say. I mean, I was pretty inspired by what he was saying, but then you listen to other stuff, and next minute I'm thinking, nah, we're going to go down the toilet. So what do you really think? Like, what do you really think the future is going to involve? And is it a matter of just you should just really think that you should really postulate really hard and that it's going to be good?
Well, I mean, a postulate just takes, it's in the blink of an eye, and it's a matter of putting it out there and deciding what you want to do. It doesn't solve the situation, but it's part of the formula. Postulates alone won't solve things. Action in the physical universe does. And I think that if things keep going on the course that they're going in the free zone and in the independent field, Scientology as we know it will cease to exist within the next 50 years. Because nobody can get along with anybody else. And I mentioned that in one of the other podcasts. And it's not getting any better. It's getting worse. And needs to be some sort of a central organization, a central OT committee, people working together and standards being put there, whether people like it or not. A good qualifications division is the only thing that's going to solve this mess that we're in as far as independent Scientologists and free zoners. The same thing goes for planet Earth. If we don't get some sort of a good qualifications division going to handle these situations, and this is whether you're talking about the movie industry or the politics side of things, we're done for. We're done for because the pedophiles will take over. I mean, they all pretty much have anyway. The sexual deviance in the movie industry, all of that stuff. I mean, this is just scratching the surface. This is just the social tone that we're seeing in the media with the Hollywood movie industry, for example, and the cosmic ping pong pizza thing that surfaced over the summer out of D.C. This is a reality. One of the best books out there on what's really going on with the elites is a book called Transformation of America, TRANCEFORMATION of America. And it's written by a girl who was part of this pedophilia thing. She was brought up in it as a little girl. And it's a hard read. But these are the individuals that are running the planet. And that's what needs to be uncovered beyond what's already being uncovered, which is a good thing. There's some good things happening. But it goes a lot deeper than that. It's going to take a lot more confront than what we're actually having right now in order to clean the slate.
So you think that the Scientology independent movement is getting worse and is shrinking?
Yeah, I think it's shrinking, and part of the reason it's shrinking is that if you look at on Facebook, just for example, if you want to look at a metric, well over 85% of the people that are on Scientolopedia's Facebook page or my Facebook page for the Advanced.
Oh, you mean the groups or groups of the Facebook pages?
Yeah, you can look at the age of the people in those groups. Most of those people are in their late 50s to early 70s.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, any of the Scientologists that were after the big, huge 70s crush movement when Scientology was at its peak. I'm one of the rare individuals from my particular decade of the 80s, the late 80s, that is in the field and is doing something and trying to push forward. I have no peer from my age group. None.
Wow,
this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all of the old guard, the Class 12s are dropping like flies. The second tier of Class 12s dropping like flies are disaffected. Third tier, of which Pierre Ethier is one, he's in really bad physical shape, and nobody can take care of him as a being for whatever reason. So
hold on a second. What do you mean? What do you mean? Different tiers of Class 12?
Well, you've got the guys that were trained by LRH. You've got the guys that were trained by LRH who trained Class 12s. Then you got the guys who were trained by guys who were trained by LRH. So it's like degrees of Class 12s: first degree, second degree, third degree. There is no fourth degree.
How many of them is there, by the way?
That are actually in the field?
No. Well, how many people have been made Class 12 in history?
Legitimate Class 12s, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 or 40.
I heard an interview with Karen De La Carriere saying how she got to Class 12 and how she goes, yes, only me and 6 others were Class 12s or something like that.
Well, it's the first tier. There weren't a tremendous number of them. I'm not a Class 12. I don't claim to be. I can audit L11, but there weren't that many that were trained. And the thing is that a vast majority of those people will be dead within the next 10 years.
Yeah, but what? Yeah, but what?
Probably less than half of them left.
Was there 6 or was there 30? It seems like,
There was less, probably less than 15. Now there's, I can count on one hand the number of Class 12s, real Class 12s in the field. I mean, there aren't that many left. And,
okay, yeah.
It's dwindling rapidly. Class 8, same thing. They're dropping like flies because they were 70s guys.
Yeah.
60s and 70s guys, late 60s, early 70s. So we need to do something about this and get some other people trained and qualified to do all of this stuff and strengthen our ranks, because the Knights of the Round Table are dying off awfully fast.
Can I ask something? You mentioned how in the early 80s people were saying that the church had been taken over by Markabians or something. How the hell did they bring that up in conversation? How did they say that? Like, as in, did they say, all they're interested in is money, so that's the real Markabian thing, or something like that, or?
I really couldn't say. I mean, whatever LRH talks about the Markabians, mainly in the briefing course materials, is where most of that data comes from. There isn't a book that I'm aware of any of LRH's stuff that talks about the Markabians. It's only in lectures. So this, how much of this was dubbing on their part, how much of it is fact, like I said, it doesn't really matter. There's probably upwards of 100 different species of life forms on this planet that came from somewhere else than here, in one form or another, or something we can't see. Not really. I mean, it doesn't matter. It is what it is. And like LRH says, the physical universe is far stranger than any science fiction novel you would ever read. So that's just how it is.
Well, what about when Captain Bill found out that that the church had now become an implant or something, and how he wrote a com or something, and I think he pretended to be LRH when he wrote the com or something, and he spread it around. I think it was around 1980 or something, and then he got in trouble and kicked out of the church or something like that. Where the hell is this policy letter that he wrote? Like, have you heard about this? Or
I've heard some things about it. I don't know enough about it to comment on it. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. If it is true, well, people screw up. I mean, LRH screwed up by letting people on his lines that screwed him over. These things happen. He said he was a man, not a god. Shit happens. That's how it is. And I know people that have been declared and done their A to E and gotten back on lines in the church, and they probably shouldn't have, and they thought they were playing for the right team. I mean, all kinds of goofy things can happen, and Robertson may have done something goofy.
No, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, he was telling everyone what he thought's going on in the church and happened and stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, he talks about in a lot of the early lectures how he found moles in the church, and he tried to report it and turn it in, and nobody did anything, which, I mean, totally falls in line with what's happened. And this is stuff he was saying at the time, 1980, 81, 82, 83, and was working with David Mayo. And, David Mayo didn't really subscribe to LRH's ethics policies and his ethics viewpoint. And so didn't use it in his organization, and then ended up going appetite over 10.
What ethics?
Getting sued.
What ethics policy is that? Just quickly.
Well, Mayo wasn't real keen on the ethics portion of Scientology.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, as in the whole,
yeah, conditions, things like that, and there are some things in the ethics materials that rub people the wrong way and bypass charge. I mean, it's understandable. But the thing is that the majority of the stuff works, but when it's misused on people, then it doesn't work, because you have to handle that bypass charge. And, putting ethics in the hands of people who aren't OT, and I mean, when I say OT, I mean OT. I don't use the term loosely. And don't act like a bunch of bumbling idiots and buffoons. You can get something done. You can really, really push a civilization along quick, because these things do work. But, the disconnection thing, LRH did away with that, and people wah, disconnect this, wah, disconnect that. LRH got rid of it. And was it RJ 67 or 68?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was brought back in by Miscavige. You want to blame somebody? Blame Miscavige. Don't blame LRH. He saw that it was wrong, and he did away with it. The ethics stuff that Mayo had a problem with, Mayo had a problem with it because they made him run around a goddamn pole all day. I mean, sure he's going to have a problem with it. I get it. So this is something that happened, and it caused the downfall of his organization because he was blind to it, because nobody handled his bypass charge on it, most likely. And Robertson saw a lot of really crappy things going on in upper management, tried to report it, and got shot down, and eventually got taken out of the organization because he was trying to tell people, basically Invasion of the Body Snatchers style, this is what's going on. These people aren't Scientologists.
Yeah, and if anyone knows where we can find this policy letter, I would love to read that, because out of all policy letters, I mean, imagine coming across that if you're on staff in the church. Like, you'll be like, what the hell is this? The church has become an implant. That'll be really cool. So someone comment or contact me and let me know where the hell I could read this, because I haven't seen this anywhere.
Yeah, well, that was the thing that was happening with the missions and the orgs back in 82, 83, is that they were getting these mail packs in from the CLOs, or Continental Liaison Offices, where something would be sent out, an HCOB or a policy letter or something like that, and then in the next mail pack it would be canceled, and the next mail pack it would be reenacted, because what was happening is that there was this huge drama going on the back lines that was causing people to see that there was something terribly wrong inside the church with these policies that were coming out, and then they were being revoked, and then they were being reinstated, and all of this stuff. So you could see why people would say, well, the Markabians are taking over, and there's good guys on the other end trying to stop them, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Whether that's the case or not, I can neither confirm or deny, but it was palpable to these orgs and missions. And so that started the snowball rolling downhill. And Kansas City, or the largest, well, Kansas City mission, was the largest mission in the Midwest and should have been an org years before, but they didn't make it an org. And then when this whole thing went down with the Mission Holders Conference and all of the Markabian stuff and the changing of the HCOBs and PLs, it went from over 100, 120 people to one guy overnight with everybody's PC folders in somebody's garage in Lee's Summit, which is a suburb of Kansas City.
Yeah.
Overnight. So single-handedly, whatever SP came on the lines during the Mission Holders Conference and did this, basically took Scientology off the map at that point in time. And there was one guy in the org for about 6 years. And then, only then, did the Church of Scientology take Kansas City Mission and turn it into an org when it had one staff member, which is a violation of policy.
I'm amazed about this pilot's death thing, because it was just like, you know, if I heard he was, you know, starting up this really cool indie org and getting all activity and stuff, would be like, oh, okay, you know, they took him out. But, I mean, he was just doing stuff on the internet and just coming up with cool processes and stuff. And even that, possibly, they took him out. And that's pretty amazing that you're saying that OSA is willing to go that far.
I'm not saying OSA did it. I don't say that at all. I don't know that OSA did it. I honestly think that Miscavige and OSA and all of that, they're just puppets to a much larger puppeteer. I don't think that Miscavige is the top dog, the lead dog, or anything like that. And even if he isn't controlled, there are other organizations on the outside that are clearing the way for his bad behavior and the direction that he's pushing Scientology into, like the pilot, taking him out. Now, the interesting thing is the last time I checked, the pilot's website was still up, and he died over 10 years ago, almost probably 13 years ago, something like that. So somebody's keeping it there to date. I don't know who, I don't know why, but I'm glad that they are.
Do you think it could, like, just quickly, could be something to do with, like, the military, for example, because they had their psychic spies and all this sort of stuff, so they don't like somebody that's waking people up to this sort of stuff?
Well, whether it's the military or not really doesn't really matter. It's just the fact that there's somebody out there that doesn't want people to go spiritually free, which has been the common theme for an extremely long period of time. And I'm not talking just in the last 75, 100, 200 million years. I'm talking about a very long time in this universe. And it's the common theme is you can't let people go free. So, whether it's the military or not is irrelevant. It's just the fact that that's what's happening. And it's evident and it's palpable because of the state of Scientology, as well as other religions on the planet.
Wow, it's really deep. So I want to get you an answer to this definitely. What do you think will happen in the future? Will things go down the toilet, or will we make it?
Well, historically speaking, at some point in time, things will go belly up. That's just been the way it is. Every society on this planet has been subverted by second dynamic activity and a de-evolution of civility.
Yeah, but hold on, John, though. But being a Scientologist, you should know about postulates and considerations and stuff, and you shouldn't be postulating that.
I'm not postulating it. I'm merely observing what's happened in the past. I'm not saying that things can't be changed in the future. But my postulate and what I do is, I mean, there have been a lot of individuals, Martin Luther King, John Lennon, Jesus Christ, if in fact he did exist.
That's another question. That's good.
I mean, the single individuals can make a very, very big difference. But that being said, it's going to take a lot more than what we're seeing right now from all of the Scientologists outside of the church and especially inside of the church for Scientology to make it as a subject. I'm not talking as a religious corporation that's wholly owned by a subsidiary of the U.S. government or the U.S. government themselves. It's going to take a lot more than that, and it's going to take ARC, it's going to take people getting their overts and withholds off, getting their technical standards raised, caring about one another, and getting in the same room, sitting down at the same table and saying, I'm sorry for what I did, here's what I did. Because if that doesn't happen soon, we aren't going to have anything. Just in the time that I've been involved in the field, it has exponentially gotten worse. And before that, before I was actually auditing as an auditor and hung out a shingle, I had 9 years that I watched it devolve, and the infighting and nobody trusting each other and all of this stuff. This isn't Scientology that's going on in the independent field. It is division that is being created by one or more individuals, and I don't disagree with a lot of the things that Scott Gordon has looked into. I think a lot of that is very true and valuable data as far as the sources of those divisions. So I don't think we have a lot of time left unless people grow up, start caring about each other, loving one another, and doing something about it, and getting in calm and handling the situation. Because if the church doesn't take us out and the government doesn't take us out, we'll take each other out. It's just Machiavellian theory.
Well, I can't believe that sires are still arguing amongst each other because, I mean, you just got to get on with it. It's just silly having arguments and fights, and just focus on the goal and you know, just what do they fight about, for example?
Well, the tech, I think, is a primary thing. There's the issue of when it got out is when the tech was true and pure, and that very few individuals got out at the same time. So they have a little bit of a degree or 2 or 4 or 5 degrees difference on what the reality is, on what the definition of high TA is, whether they got out in the 60s or the 70s or the 80s or the 90s. Just little things like that, because it causes an ARC break because it's out reality, and that there's no common ground, there's no common definition. Because when the tech was attacked, or LRH came up with something prior to that and said, wait, there is such a thing as past lives. I mean, even then, back in the early 50s, LRH said, this stuff they're coming up with, past lives, it's a bunch of hooey. Don't believe it. A day or two later, he comes up with another lecture and says, remember when I said it was a bunch of hooey? It's true. Okay? I mean, this is how the tech evolved. But the thing is the tech evolution got to be so muddied with whoever was writing it, who got approved, and whether LRH approved it, or if it was a board policy letter, or when this guy got out in 69 and this other guy got out in 77, and so they can't see eye to eye. And because there's no qual in the field. When LRH says if an organization doesn't have a qual, it's finished. Finished.
Okay, but hold on. So to handle cases in the independent field, other indies have to work with other indies, and that's where the problem's coming. So is it kind of like staff members arguing amongst staff members, basically? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it is, but you know, there's no chaplain's court. There's no port of safe harbor, if you will, where somebody can say, well, this happened in this session, and I think this is out tech, or this, you know, Christ, you can't even get them to share PC folders. I mean, I've even heard of an organization burning somebody's PC folders and telling another auditor that they burned their PC folders because they didn't want anybody else having them. I mean, this is how far this stuff has gone. I'm not making this up.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah. Now, whether
so
that's
ridiculous.
true or not, I can neither confirm or deny, but it wouldn't surprise me. You know, and you've got Class 12 auditor training another auditor to learn how to do the L's, and then wanting them to give them a piece of the action for every person that they audit on the L's, and then that person agreeing to it and then not doing it anymore and telling them, fuck you, I'm not going to do that anymore. That shouldn't be happening. He didn't make up the L's. This guy's trying to do it for somebody else. But see, the thing is you enter in this really funky arbitrary called money, and it makes people loopy. And that's the biggest problem that we have, is because that arbitrary in there is creating the problem, because everybody needs to survive.
Yeah, people start being dishonest to get more money, and that's the problem. You have to you have to focus on the product, and then just the side effect. The second thing that happens is the money. You know?
Yeah, it's never been about the money in Scientology. It's what you're doing, caring for the person in front of you, what you're doing for them. I mean, Christ, the OT3 package in 1973 was $3,000. That included Solo 1, Solo 2, setups, OT 1, 2, and 3. $3,000. You used to be able to get an intensive for $250. Now, granted, the inflation is increased exponentially since then, but still it shouldn't be anywhere near what it is in the field or in the church especially. But the thing is that everybody's got to eat. Everybody's got to keep the lights on, pay their bills. That's one of the reasons why you don't see people getting trained in the field, is because there's no money in it. There's just no money in it for people, because it takes so long to make an auditor that if you charge them for what your time is worth, maybe a minimum of $50 an hour, to make somebody a Class 4, you're looking at hundreds and hundreds of hours that you have to pour into them. They're not going to be able to pay you that. So they say, well, here's the check sheet. You can do it yourself. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll help you out as I can, sort of a thing. And so then you get this funky tech. You get guys out there that are not fully trained or something, and they're trying to take on something that's way above their pay grade, if you will. I mean, it goes on and on and on. So that's why the field's in the shape that it's in, and without a qual, and without people willing to do a mea culpa on the fact that they're not really trained properly, it's not going to progress. And it's going to go the way of the dodo within my lifetime, probably. So we need to get together, and that's why I'm still trying to postulate an auditor's summit and a co-audit summit to get everybody in the same room, both tech and public, all in one place.
Well, when they have the Scientology summits or whatever, the Ray Robles ones, one of the days could be an auditor summit.
It could be, but see, the thing is that you're not going to get everybody there. I mean, you know, the common agreement at that type of convention is that, yeah, we're going to do what we're going to do, and you're going to do what you're going to do, and we all agree that we're all going to do what we do, and that's just how it's going to be. And that's literally been what's happened. It's because everybody wants to get creative with the tech, and they want to do their own things. And the thing is that if there is no stable datum, if we're not all doing the same thing, and I'm not saying that there might be some new a better bridge, but it's got to be based on a stable datum. LRH is stable datum, and we say, okay, we all agree on this, and we're going to go forward in this fashion, because otherwise somebody gets screwed up by Joe because Joe's doing something that he made himself. He won't give the PC folders, and then Mary comes along. She's trying to fix this guy because he's begging and pleading, and he feels horrible, and he has headaches, and he's got a bad case of gout all of a sudden. Then she doesn't know how to handle the guy or fix the guy because she doesn't know what was done, because some new thing that was done might have bypassed charge on the person, made them feel horrible, but that person won't give them any of the information because it's theirs. That's the problem. So we need to have a stable datum. That's why a summit needs to be handled. The ARC breaks and the rudiments need to be gotten in between all of the field auditors, and it's then, it's like, all right, listen, we need to all be on the same page. We're not each other's enemies. We are each other's friends, and we're all that we've got. We're family. Knock this shit off. Let's get the show on the road. Let's agree what this stuff is, and you're going to go to Qual if you fuck up on somebody, and you're going to fix them for free. You're not going to charge them for that. You're going to charge somebody for something you screwed up on them on. That's one of the things the church did. That's one of the biggest problems the church has had. You don't charge somebody for something you screwed up on them on.
Okay.
But that's another story.
So what you're saying is basically that the Indies in America should unite and form one org.
I'm saying the Indies on the planet should. There isn't enough of them in America. And if you want my personal opinion, the Indies in the United States are far, far, far more screwed up than they are any other place on the planet. Mainly because they were in the Sea Org. That's my opinion.
Yeah, but well, I believe in the free market and all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, I don't know. I think it's a cool idea. Someone should get in there and say, let's unite and form one big org, right? But I'm also not saying that org should be top-heavy and tell everybody what to do. I'm just saying a lightness of organization is LRH's catchphrase for that. It shouldn't be heavy-handed. It shouldn't, you're going to ethics, I am the ethics officer, and all that crap. It needs to be run by people who are really OTs and want to get the show on the road and help people and do that. That's the way it needs to be. It doesn't have to be heavy-handed. It can be run really, really lightly. And if it isn't, we're done. That's all there is to it. That's my opinion. That's my viewpoint. It's just not going to happen. Well, it's kind of like the APIS. It's like an association of independents, and they're kind of like an org. You know what I mean? So it's like...
Yeah, well, APIS is a handful of individuals trying to do the right thing, and I commend them for that tremendously. But if an auditor wants to be on their website, they have to pay APIS $150 and have to get checked out. Hey, there's nothing wrong with a person getting checked out, but it has become and is political. Period, paragraph. Same thing is what's been happening with the Scientology 2.0 thing, the thing that Jim Fonda started. When I asked them, okay, so who's the tech panel? They wouldn't tell me who the tech panel was, and they deleted the conversation from Facebook because they don't want to tell you who the tech panel is. Okay, so you're going to start an organization on a withhold of a tech panel?
Hold on a second. I get what's going on, right? Okay, because like you said, because people got trained at this time and that time, and someone had this bad experience. Basically, you've got all these used cars, and the used cars are trying to get combined into one org, right? And it's going to have problems. But something like Ron's org, right, where they've got someone who's come in fresh and hasn't done any Scientology anywhere else, and then they've been trained up, they can have a cool ride and a smooth ride, and everything could be sweet because they're not dealing with used cars. So that's basically, right. I think,
as far as I understand it, at least, yes.
I guess it's I think maybe it's impossible to get all Indies to unite and form one group, and just each Indie should start their own mission and have a good Div 6 on that and deal with making fresh Scientologists.
Well, I don't disagree on the fresh Scientologists, because a lot of the Scientologists that are out there are damaged goods. I mean, damaged goods. And some of them are fixable because they don't want to be fixed. They're happy with their aberrations, and they consider them happiness. But, making new Scientologists is very likely the only way that it will succeed. But the thing is with the Ronzorg guys, they've been able to find a stable platform that they say, okay, well, this is the tech that we're using. I mean, even with the XCal stuff, they tell people, never mind all that space opera stuff in the materials. Just pay attention to the process and everything like that. I mean, so that's a prime example. So they've all agreed that, okay, the space opera stuff, it's a little heavy. All right, so we're just going to kind of set that aside. And then let's look at how you do this particular OT level. This is how you do it, and just go with that. So that's what I'm trying to say is that there needs to be some stable datum like that. Okay, we're going to go with the 1969 LRH tech. Are we going to go with the 1979 LRH tech or the 1982 LRH tech? That sort of thing. Because they're all different things. Even if you look at it from the viewpoint of what high TA was, from what LRH said on the Class 8 course to what LRH said in the mid-70s into the 80s, so on and so forth. So this creates division within the ranks of the people out in the field. So there needs to be a stable datum established. There needs to be rudiments gotten in between all of the auditors that have worked together or third-partied one another and all of that stuff. Then, with a clean slate, then you can kind of take it from there. I think if you have an organization that basically just serves a qual purpose for tech guys, for admin guys, and says, come in here, let's spot check you on this particular area, and they're in some little town in Illinois, but they have an organization, they can get a pass on things, and they can say, yeah, you know your shit. Now go back out there and get PCs. So there's always somebody helping to qualify people and keep them clean, because if you don't have that, they won't go very far. It's like a bullet into a pool full of jello. It'll just, and that's it. And that's where we're at right now, is that the bullet is reaching the bottom of the pool, and it's almost come to a complete stop, and it's just going to sit there unless people get cleaned up and get away from their altitude-itis of I'm the most important, I'm the most knowledgeable, I know everything, and everybody else doesn't know anything, they're all crazy. Because that's where it's at right now.
I think, well, speaking of that, I think it would be really fun to start up a mission and play that game and try and get it started with like fresh new people and
sure,
that'd be a fun game. I reckon you could do it. I reckon people could do it. They could just go from scratch and just do it.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, they have to know the policy. They have to know the tech. They have. It's the chicken or the egg. You can start something with good intentions, but that'll only get you so far. You need to know how to do that. How do you spot a person's tone level? How do you get them in for a personal efficiency course? All this. I mean, the people that God had it on it, like what was the gal's name that you did the interview with 3 weeks ago?
Janice Grady.
Yeah, they had a rocking mission there in Melbourne because they knew what they were doing. So if they know what they're doing, they can do really well. But the thing is that when somebody leaves or something gets dropped out when somebody leaves, then the missions tend to fall apart or they get suppressed by an overhead org. So, you're only as much at cause as you know the policy and the tech. So we've got to start somewhere. There's got to be a chicken that lays the egg.
Well, I was thinking Bali would be a beautiful place for a independence version of Flag. I mean,
or have a private island, like Bali or something like that, where they're not part of any country, and you have your own jet, your own runway, your own boat to get there, or whatever, and as long as it doesn't become the island of Dr. Moreau or something like that.
What's that?
It would do really well. Because things can get out of hand when places are isolated. There's a lot of great fiction stories about that sort of a thing, and isolation is what leads to aberration, unfortunately.
Hey, did David Mayo really not believe that the OT3 incident occurred?
I haven't heard anything about that one way or the other. I don't know anything about it, unfortunately.
Okay, I heard Ray Robles say that David Mayo said that LRH was quite possibly totally wrong about OT3 or something.
Well, all I can tell you is this: is that the way that OT3 is run, it reads like the incident reads like gangbusters for what you're running it on. You don't run OT3 on yourself. LRH changed that early on. It was run that way, where you actually ran it on yourself. You don't run OT3 on yourself. You run OT3 on a part of the composite case, and it reads like crazy. And the wins from it are astounding.
Oh, and speaking of that, I mean, look, I know David Mayo, was smart and that sort of stuff, but I don't think he knew, like, information about the world that, like, Mary Sue knew and that, like, intelligence people know. Like the idea that there's, satanic rituals and pedophile parties and, like, just real hardcore shit. I don't think that was his hat. I think his hat was more, a really good, caring auditor and a philosophical sort of guy. But there's this whole admin side of life that's like, I guess, the Alex Jonesy type of side of life that's like, whoa, this is what's going on PT now. And I don't think David Mayer know that. So basically what I'm saying is that I would easily, especially after listening to Mission Earth, I would easily take LRH's idea on things over David Mayo's any day. LRH was way more of a genius than he ever was. But he definitely was a real smart, good guy.
Well, I mean, it's just like anything else in life. You meet people who, every thetan has their own area or strength. You could also say that they have their own area of confront. Some thetans have a stronger confront in one area than others do. Some people are suited for black ops type things, and other people are suited at baking cakes, and they're really, really good at it. And that's just how it is. And David Mayo's strengths played a huge part in what later became knots. And I would find it really strange that if he thought that the OT3 incidents were invalid, how in the world did he help LRH develop what later became knots as a rundown? It doesn't make sense to me. So that doesn't compute. And I to go back to what you were saying, yeah, he was probably a really great auditor. He didn't know all of this stuff, and Mary Sue had a better understanding of things. I mean, I can either confirm or deny that. But some people have strong suits in areas that don't, or just never down that walk of life. I don't think that David Mayo couldn't confront that data. I think he could. Maybe he just wasn't presented to him. I don't know.
All right, look, I've got to fire some questions to you because I've still got a bunch of stuff I want to ask. Okay, somehow I need you to answer these as fast as possible, right?
Okay.
Okay, get ready, okay? Can the e-meter be used? Is the e-meter a dowsing tool? Is it like a dowsing tool, basically?
No.
It isn't. You sure?
No.
I heard LRH was using it to, like, find gold and stuff.
Maybe one of the earlier ones. The e-meter originally wasn't his idea. It was Matheson's. He basically took the idea from Matheson and cast Matheson out at one point.
Yeah, but
so,
Yeah, but can you use it like a dowsing tool where you just ask it questions? And because you know how amazing dowsing tools are. Have you looked into them? They're like, what the hell? You hold these sticks, and they just twist, or you have it like people have a gem and they twist it, turn it some way, and then when you ask the question, somehow it turns back, and it's like, what the hell? It's like the universe talking to you.
I don't think it could be used as a dowsing tool, no. Because the meter is based off of charge, it's based off of resistance or lack thereof. I don't think that, dowsing ones operate off of resistance per se. That's just my viewpoint on it.
Okay, all right. The LRH birthday game, is that something that, because it got released in the times where we were questionable that is a tech safe and all that sort of stuff, is it a load of crap, or is it something LRH actually wrote and sanctioned and all that sort of stuff?
Well, I can't verify that LRH actually wrote the 339R program, but it's written in such a way that it sure sounds like he wrote it. I mean, I know how LRH's writing sounds. I've read enough of it, and I can tell when it's LRH and it's not LRH. I'd say probably 95, 98% of the time. So I think he did write that.
Okay, so why doesn't it work then? Why is there this retarded thing where you can just shoot up your stats and then you win the birthday game, but you're just going up and down like this, and it's stupid? It's not like it's actually measures you really growing as an org.
Well, the problem with that is that it became political, and you're dealing with the situation where you get so many points, but what relative to what? And the point system that they used in the 339R program was sort of just an arbitrary. It didn't really reflect what was going on at that time. It's sort of like, well, 1 from 0, that's really something special. Okay, so you went from having no people to 1 person in the course room. Wow, your stats are up. Well, relative to what? Okay, so that was the biggest problem with the 339R program. Right there was just the point system and the way that they did it. And then on top of that, you had a lot of orgs and missions that were false reporting statistics in order to be up in the birthday game, because there was so much downward pressure to the orgs in order to get their stats up. That they would falsify stats, or like the org here in Kansas City, they would go out and put OCAs on car windshields outside of bars in the Westport area. I mean, does that make any sense? No.
There was
a lot of stat falsification.
Yeah, it really caused stat pushing, which was just the worst thing ever. It just ruins the org. Hey, I got a question for you, okay? This was a comment that was left on YouTube from someone called Aussie Boy, and it said that he got the impression that your past life name was Jody Christendim. Is that correct?
Not by my recollection.
Okay, so Jody Christendon isn't... And I thought it'd just be interesting to bring it up. I mean, he wrote that for the last interview we did. Hey, what do you think of Skype auditing?
I think it's a bad idea.
Yeah, well, it's out tech, isn't it?
Well, to say that it's out tech, I mean, if you look at things from a nonce perspective, you can go audit somebody or something remotely and handle a situation in a very positive sense. But there's a liability to doing that because of the composite case of the person that you're auditing. It's sort of like rats jumping a ship. That can be done, but as far as Skype auditing goes, you're not doing it in real time. You're not seeing instant reads, and you have no comparable magnitude to what's really being said and what's being done in real time. And it doesn't fly. And I dare anybody to convince me otherwise on that. It's not because LRH said that it couldn't happen. There are a lot of things LRH didn't predict that we have now, which is one of these things is what we're doing right now. We're having video conferencing on our phones. So, you can talk to somebody on it, but I'm not going to take an instant read off of Skype for somebody. Or, I mean, I don't agree with the stuff that's going on. I've had a couple people say, well, I don't even use a meter. I don't use a meter anymore. I just audit them from a distance. All right. Well, then you're not really doing Scientology, are you? You're doing.
All right, cool. I got your answer. All right. Now, this one you can give a long answer to. I still don't want a long answer. What the hell is this idea that there was no Jesus Christ? I mean, that's why. I mean, and when I heard LRH say there was no Christ, I thought maybe they mean he was using the definition of Christ, like there was no Bible, Catholic Church, God, Christ. I didn't think he was suggesting the idea that man actually didn't exist. What the hell's going on? Like, what was he suggesting, and what's your opinion of this?
Well, the thing is for example, as far as Jesus Christ, the man, goes and him existing, I can neither confirm or deny that. Maybe there was a guy that was named that. maybe those things happened that brought him into existence. I tend to doubt that, and that it was an immaculate conception.
So you doubt that it was you doubt it was an immaculate conception?
Yeah,
Okay.
I find that very hard to believe.
Well, I just think it's all a UFO story. But anyway, keep on going.
But a lot of the data that's in the Bible has been altered by Roman emperors and then ultimately the Catholic Church after that. Jesus never said he was the Son of God. So that's, one of those things there that kind of changes the whole game plan on it. And that was changed by a Roman emperor when he saw that it could make money off of Catholicism.
Yeah, so hold on. So, because earlier in the conversation you mentioned something like the idea that there was no Jesus, right? So you're saying that you do prescribe more to the idea that he never existed as a man? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying that the story was probably quite a bit different than the way that it's portrayed in current texts.
Okay, yeah, because there's some people who really do believe that he never existed and there's no historical record of him existing. I think it's more the fact that he did exist. He was an OT guy. He did exist, but of course the whole story has been totally taken out of context, and they've said, "Oh, he's the son of God" and all this stuff.
Right, but you can't even get a story to remain the same in the same day between three people. So we're talking several centuries, over 2,000 years. So I think the story's probably been altered at least a little bit, if not a lot.
Okay, all right. What's DCSI auditing? Yeah.
The DCSI was the first rundown or handling for somebody who may or may not be clear, as opposed to the CCRD, which was originated many years later by Miscavige Scientology.
Hold on a second. So LRH, are you telling me that LRH never wrote CCRD and never came up with that name and everything?
I don't know if he did or not. You'd have to ask Dan Kuhn that. I don't know if that was something LRH sanctioned or not. The DCSI was LRH.
And what does it stand for?
Dionytic Clear Special Intensive.
And that's to check that if you've gone clear.
Yeah, and it's not just to check, but to put somebody up to where if they're not clear, they're not unhappy or upset or sad or whatever. And if they are clear, it validates the state, and then they can go on and continue on with the Sunshine Rundown, and then ultimately Solar 1 and Solar 2, etc.
Okay, so when did CCRD get released?
I would not be the person to ask on that. I tend to use the DCSI. The CCRD tends to invalidate a couple of the clear states, like a natural clear, for example. And it's tremendously edited from what the DCSI is.
Okay,
I really don't know when it was originated.
Okay, my understanding was that in the middle 60s, when they first actually started calling people clear and giving them like a clear number and stuff, they had to pass a checklist of like 20 questions or something like that. I thought that was the CCRD question list. Is that the DCSI question list, or is that the Sunshine Rundown?
Neither, actually. Originally, back in the 60s, you had to go in and talk to LRH himself, and he would tell you whether you were clear or not.
But what's this thing, this list that you have to pass of questions or something? You have to FN on or something?
Well, I don't know between that in the 60s and talking to LRH and the DCSI, but the DCSI came about in the mid to late 70s.
Is that a list of questions you have to sort of FN on or something?
No, it's just you're basically asking. It's basically like a big director of processing interview, and you're asking a person questions about what occurred in session. You can't just come out and say, clear cog this, clear cog that, because then you're feeding them cognition. So you kind of have to pull it out of them, ask these questions and everything, and the DCSI takes it from several different angles to where you can find out whether the person really went clear or not. That's its purpose. And then by the end of the list, you're cleaning them up one way or the other as to whether they are or aren't clear and handling any of that bypass charge.
What does the sunshine rundown involve? Passing any lists or anything, or is that done after you've definitely been labelled as clear?
That's after you've actually gone clear, and it's basically an objective process or processes for the person to kind of stabilize the clear, and really put them in PT and just get them ready for their next step. It's very short.
Okay, and I just had the idea, if you were someone who, let's say you're involved with the church and you left, and you had been declared clear by the church and now you're not, and then you're made to redo your purif and blah, 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 and you're sort of in that situation where you're like confused as to what level you're supposed to do, if you went up to an independent auditor, would that sort of person need to do a few things and then the DCSI, and then they will finally have that actual state of clear again, something like that?
You could if the person really was clear, you wouldn't need to do a DCSI again. You could, basically do a DFP first, a director of processing interview, find out where any charge is, give them sort of a life repair of sorts, handle any bypass charge coming out of the church, any eval, suppression, that sort of thing, any PTSness to the church. And then you could, once you got them all kind of cleaned up that way, in a little sort of a miniature after the church life repair, then you could rehab their grades, and when they went clear, which, this happens at a couple of points on the bridge anyway, but if there was any question of it, that's what you could do, is just rehab it and date and locate when they went clear.
Okay, but what if they were one of those people that never did the actual grades? Because I'm questionable about these sort of things, because I just feel like everyone should be doing the grades and everyone should be doing the clear certainty rundown, or I think that's what it's called. You know what? I like the 1975 idea where it was like, this is what it is. Everyone's doing the grades. Everyone's doing the clear certainty. No, the clearing course. Everyone's doing that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, the clearing course was sort of took a back seat to standard Dianetics around about 72, 73. And LRH was really hot on standard Dianetics, which was the hottest thing going, in his words. And standard Dianetics was basically what would later become New Era Dianetics, which had several rundowns added to it, and also added one more flow to the flows that you audit a person on Dianetics, audited Dianetics on a meter. So clearing course was generally done for people who did not go clear on standard Dianetics and what was later New Era Dianetics. As far as the grades go, the grades are great. Everybody should do them. Originally, it was just the quad part of the grade that was done back in the late 60s and early 70s, and then LRH decided, with the help of a couple other individuals, to add on a lot of other processes that may or may not be needed, and it's a little bit as to the length of the grades as you find them now, even as far back as the mid to late 80s. They've been extended and extended and extended and extended. And with that in mind, the grades are a series of key outs and nothing more. They key a person out on a particular topic: ARC breaks, problems, overts, withholds, service facsimiles. And then that's what they do. They key a person out so that you can get to the reactive mind without all this other bullshit going on. So yes, you should do them, but you don't necessarily have to do 100 processes in order to do an expanded grade.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Okay, what about power processing? Does the church even deliver that anymore?
I doubt it. I don't know for sure. I could neither confirm or deny that.
Isn't it next to? Do you know
power for years?
Do you know the alternate route to clear on the church? Isn't it part of that's like grade 5, and then it says power processing and on the church's bridge?
Yeah. It's something. It's for really tough cases.
Oh, and okay, and so, but didn't it used to be for everyone?
No. No, it's sort of in emergency break glass sort of thing. It's for a really tough case. It isn't something that everybody should do.
Is this the thing that John McMaster invented?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know. That it was a period of time that I don't know much about.
Can you get power processing in the independent field?
Yeah, there aren't very many people that do it anymore. There are those who tend to want to use power processing to audit everybody on for everything, which is not what they were intended for. The power processes are like lightning in a bottle, and some of them are used in the latter part after Excalibur, between the Phoenix and Excalibur, and they work like gangbusters and can be used on part of the composite case if things stick, and they will resolve that part of the composite case. I do know that from my own experience.
So you've done power processing?
I have not done power processing myself, but I have applied it to part of the composite case, which was part of my composite case, and it resolved the issue immediately.
Oh,
stunningly.
Okay. All right. So, with the L rundowns, are you a fan of them? And do you really think that they can make someone who's able to just exteriorize at will?
I've never seen anything, and I've heard this from several people now, including yourself, that the L's provide exteriorization at will. I've never seen anything in the materials that reference that whatsoever. I don't know where that datum comes from. I will go as far as to say that I think it's a bit of a falsehood. That's not the purpose of the L's. Basically, the purpose of the L's and what LRH's intentions with the L's was, you got this guy, he's an executive, he's got a case. You need him to be and act like an OT as soon as possible, and there's no runway long enough that we can get this guy to go do his grades, do his med, standard Dynetics, whatever, get up the OT levels, blah, 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 blah. So LRH developed the L rundowns, and L stands for lists, as in listing and nulling, which basically bypass key portions of the case and just cut to the chase and make the guy an executive's executive as an OT within a very short period of time. That was the original 10 L's.
So would you recommend, let's say somebody would like to become like powerful spiritually as soon as possible, would you just say to him, and he's done no Scientology before, would you say to him, just go in there and do the L's?
Well, the L's can be done anywhere on the bridge. I wouldn't tell somebody that if they were green on the street and they wanted to do Scientology to go do the L's, because the further you are up the bridge, the more you're going to get. The deeper the draft, the more of an undercut it's going to take. You're going to get a lot more from it if you do the L's after OT3. Then this can come straight from a Class 12. I was told that, and I believe that firmly, that if you do them after OT3, you'll get a lot more out of it. I think they can do a lot for you prior to OT3, but you're just going to, the breadth, the width, the dynamics of it are going to be a lot larger the more case you have off of your plate. But they can be done anywhere on the bridge. That's what LRH says in the materials.
Okay. With remote viewing, is that somebody going exterior and viewing things, or is it somebody using their theta knowingness in order to find out details about things that are far away?
Well, from my understanding and from what I've read on the subject on the internet, and I can't validate whether the materials that I read on the internet were actually factual or not, or who wrote them and what they knew, whether they were talking about or not. But remote viewing and going exterior are pretty much the same thing. That's my understanding of it. What was the rest of the question?
Well, my understanding of it was a little bit different in that you're using some sort of psychic and knowingness ability to get answers about, like, impressions about somewhere far away. Like, as in, you can go there exterior, or you can just get impressions. I thought they were sort of two different things.
Well, my understanding of it is that took the Scientology materials and sort of riffed on them a little bit to get what it was that they were looking for in the physical universe, to where one of the problems you have when you being exteriorizes is they can be dyslexic. So there could be symbols that could be right in front of them, but they couldn't actually. Symbols were cards. They could see that there were images on them and they were faces, but they couldn't tell you the significance of them. And they were able to take the tech and get it to a point to where they could handle the dyslexia, and they could go in and tell a guy, okay, what's in the safe on the page, and they could somehow extrapolate what the significance was on the page in the safe without reading. That's my understanding, which is a pretty good ability that they can do that. I'm not sure if that's really true or not. I have my doubts, but if they can do that, okay, then that's what they were doing. And beyond that, there's a couple of books written about the subject where they took these guys who could exteriorize, and they would use them in a program on Long Island to send people to Mars. And so what the OT, who was exterior or could exteriorize at will, would do is that he would put a focal point for them to drop these people through this portal or whatever it was that they were doing, so that they didn't end up and land into a big cliff wall. So
Okay.
They were using them as a focusing, pinpointing type of clairvoyant exteriorization terminal.
So at Montauk, they were working out ways to exteriorize and travel to Mars.
Yeah, well, they were using the guys that could exteriorize to validate the point of where they were going to send people, and kind of drop a pin, if you will, like we do on Google Street View, and say, this is where they need to go, and they could put their attention in there, and somehow the machinery knew that where their intention was, that's where they needed to send them. So they were like a theta DPS. That's the way it was explained to me.
It's very interesting. I've actually been listening to a bit about that Montauk project recently, and it seems like they've gotten the memory wiping technology. Like in the 50s, it was, the sodium pentothal and the hypnotism and stuff. It seems like now they've totally got to the point where it's totally science fiction, where it's just full-blown electronics and full-blown, like, can really wipe the memory,
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, for every year that goes by, the Black Ops programs advance roughly 75 years. Roughly 43, 42, 43. So 2017 minus 1943 times 75, that wouldn't surprise me a bit.
Yeah, and they're getting Markabian help from the Markabians probably with this technology and stuff. Hey, so in the first interview you mentioned Lady Gaga selling out, and I read the article about it, and it was a bit like, what the hell? Like her saying she spoke to some person that seemed to just appear, and that she sold her soul to the dark side to get success or something.
Yeah.
What the hell? What the hell? Jonathan, what the hell? Yeah, I mean, you read that article and you're like, what? But what? I mean, I don't understand it. I mean, like, I understand it if some rich Rothschild guy walked over to her and goes, "Hey, Lady Gaga, blah 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 blah, you come work for us and be the singer." But it didn't seem to be like that. The way she spoke about how she sold her soul, it seemed to be a supernatural experience where this being just appeared. It was like a ghost or something. Like, what's your understanding of this?
Well, I mean, all I could do is hypothesize on it. I mean, it could be entirely her own case. She seems like a very intelligent person, and she's very creative and capable and has a lot of horsepower, but she's a fucking mess. I mean, we watched I think it was like a 2-hour show. It was behind the scenes with her and her handlers and all of that. She's a mess. She's a mess, and she's also very creative and capable at the same time. So it's very possible that something like that did happen. But like LRH says, he says, God help anybody who becomes famous, because you just attract all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, these celebrities are just, they're an absolute mess. But do you think a thetan visited her?
It wouldn't surprise me.
And
it wouldn't surprise me at all.
So hold on a second. Oh, no, I understand this because I was listening to stuff with Jordan Maxwell. Search it on Google or YouTube and that. Great interview, right? You got to listen to this. It's Jordan Maxwell talking with David Icke for Project Camelot. Yeah. And they talk about the forces of good and evil and good angels and bad angels. You know, basically just good thetans and bad thetans, or good aliens and bad thetans. It's totally true. It's totally out there. The Markabians are probably the bad aliens, the bad angels or whatever. And they were talking about, like, it makes sense that these things could be visiting us and communicating with someone like Lady Gaga, and it can be a demon or whatever, a bad angel, a bad alien, and it could be negotiating with them. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, the ability to have the king's ear is a big deal, because when you've got somebody that speaks to hundreds of millions, millions of people, like somebody like Lady Gaga or John Lennon, MLK, or whatever, you are really controlling a large group of people, and that's very, very key and important to those who have the ability to talk into the king's ear. So I think, you know, if there's one thing that Scientology has taught me, is that you really shouldn't be surprised about anything, and things aren't always what they seem.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah,
it's possible.
Yeah, and look up this article, people listening, this Lady Gaga thing, because it's just like, what the hell? It really is like, what? It's just, it is quite odd.
I mean, yeah, I could take her in session and, you know, straighten her out probably with, I don't know, 5-8 intensives or something like that, but I would never be able to get my foot in the door because of the handlers and stuff like that, because there's money in keeping her screwed up. I mean, that's the whole thing behind it. The more screwed up she is, the more money they make, because that's sort of what she's peddling, unfortunately. But she's really a very creative, powerful force.
Yeah, and
there are a lot of other people out there as well that are the same way, who are artists.
Yeah, she's probably getting used to promote homosexuality. All right, we're on a home stretch. We're nearly there. Okay. All right. Okay. Do you know John Watson, the internet guy?
I've spoken to him on Facebook numerous times, both private message and just in comments. But
what do you think of him? What do you think of him? Is he an OSA thing or a troll or what?
I don't know. I mean, I've never seen him in any conversation that I've had with him. I've never seen him be anything but nice, and, you know, sometimes a little inequal in some of his replies, but I've never seen him tear anybody down in anything that I've seen.
Yeah, I interviewed. I interviewed him, and he seemed nice and stuff. But it's just the way how he types on the internet is just crazy.
Yeah, I admit it's unusual, but that's, you know, it just because he uses unusual grammar doesn't make him good or bad. It's just unusual grammar. That's all it is.
Okay, but there is a possibility he could be some OSA troll that goes out there into groups and writes comments and stuff that's just looks crazy, so that then, you know, discredits the whole indie movement.
Sure, so could I. I mean, you know, I don't have any data that says that's... I haven't seen anything that would indicate that.
Yeah. Okay, so this course you mentioned it before. What's it called again? When you've like a church repair, like when you left the church and you go to the independent movement, and what's it called?
Well, Pierre Ethier, the Class 12, actually developed a really good, basically getting out of or leaving the church past. It's hard to find, but, you know, some auditors out there do have it. I used to have a copy of it. I don't anymore. I don't know where it went. Any good CS could develop one, and that would be a really good start to handle any of the bypass charge that a person would have. Other than that, do a EFP interview and ask them questions about the church and their experiences in it, and then just write a regular life repair program for them to handle the rudiments on leaving church, and their family and friends and things like that would do the same thing.
Okay, so it would be called a COS repair list.
Yeah, leaving the church is Scientology repair lists.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'll have to do that one day. That sounds like it would be good. You know, you get rid of the charge of your. Seems like
I think it should be done for everybody.
All right, here's a big question. Who controls the Scientology church? Like, who is CST exactly, and who runs it? Is David Miscavige just a puppet?
Well, I can tell you what I think. I mean, I can't give you any names or anything like that. From the people that I've talked to, numerous people that I've talked to, I've had several people tell me that there is not one Scientologist on the board of directors for CST. Not one. None of them are Scientologists. David Miscavige is not a Scientologist.
Whoa! That's a big statement.
He's not. He's not a Scientologist. I mean, it's really not a big statement, because if he was a Scientologist, the church wouldn't be in the condition that it's in.
Yeah, no, but for a church member, it's big. I mean, here's the confusion thing is, when I looked at him, I was like, yeah, okay, so he's an SP. Look at all the information and stuff. But he's an SP that actually believes in Scientology. But what you're saying is that he's not even a PSYO. He's just an SP.
No. He's never done the OT levels and thinks they're a bunch of hooey.
How do you know that?
I've talked to people that have firsthand.
No way. Was he? No way. What does he say?
It's a bunch of bullshit. He doesn't believe any of it. I mean,
wow.
That's because he's so cut off from everything.
So you've spoken to former Sea Org people who were close to David Miscavige, and the insider is that he's not even a believer at all, and he just not at all.
No.
And he actually would mention that sometimes to the other execs.
I think he would only to his closest confidants, sort of a thing. And, the guy's got issues, big issues, and anybody that has issues like he's got, he isn't going to see any value in the OT levels. I mean, he's so cut off from the whole thing. It's from the subject of Scientology. He can't even see his nose despite his face.
So he's just
literally the situation.
He's just a power-hungry SP like all the ones that run corporations and governments and all this sort of stuff, and he's just in control of Scientology.
He is now. At some point in the past, he probably was on the right path. But I mean, when the guy commits overt motivator kicks in, justification, service, facsimiles, he's got a composite case. It might not even be the same thetan that was originally David Miscavige. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the whole body takeover scenario wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, his own dad said, "That's not my son." So
yeah. When did he say the change happened?
I don't recall. I didn't read the book. My wife did, but I mean, I've seen enough of it. It's just, like Ellerate says, for anything to persist, there's a lie behind it. And if David Miscavige was the problem to the situation, there are enough people now that know that who he is and what he is. If he was the problem to the situation, it would have resolved and be in jail right now. He's not the problem. There are other organizations and other people protecting him, the FBI included.
Yeah, he's just a puppet, you reckon? Or he's a puppet, but he's also a pretty damn powerful puppet as well?
Well, he's given enough leash and enough of they know he's enough of a pit bull that he can be the facade of the whole thing, while, it's just like the American government and the president. The president is, he's supposedly the buck stops with the president. No, it doesn't. He doesn't even have a remotely high enough clearance to know what's really going on. There have been so many people that have come forward and said, yeah, he's got like a third-tier clearance out of 20. Because that's the deal. So it's the same deal with Miscavige. He's being run around and he doesn't even know it.
Well, who's making these changes to the tech? Like, who are the people? Is it Shelley Miscavige or whatever that's actually working, looking through the old versions of the tech and releasing GAT2 and saying, we went through here and we edited it? And, like, who are these people who are doing that?
And I don't have any data on that. I really don't know. All I can say is that it just keeps getting altered and changed and deleted, and tech volumes pulled out of course rooms, and they're rewriting the tech volumes, blah, 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 you know, but nobody can use them. And then eventually the tech volumes will never be put back in the course rooms again. And that way they've totally eliminated anybody causing a problem in the future. 50 years down the road, nobody even know what a tech volume is, because anybody that did would be dead. That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, that's the way they've been doing it for the last 30 years.
Do you think they're probably they're probably non-Scientologist lawyers or something that are keen on getting the copyrights released again, and so they're going through the materials and going, oh, we'll put a picture here and we'll change this paragraph here or something?
Well, that's the way they've done it, and the thing is that the only thing that's copyrightable is the changes that they've made, the things they've added, and they just expect people to believe that, and they get a pass on it, and then they go ahead and do it. I mean, that's the way it's been done for the last 30 years. So I think they'll continue to do that, and they'll just keep devolving it and altering it, and before too long, it will be recognizable. It isn't already. I mean, a lot of things that aren't.
What do you think of these NASA machines that they've got for the superpower rundown at Flag?
Basically,
hold on, it cut out. It cut out. Can you say that again? Oh man, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Maybe I asked a bad question. Okay, start again.
Okay, what I said was the superpower program at Flag is basically an implant station.
Yes, this is the data I like, all right. This is the second last question, so let's go into this. All right. Explain that. Okay.
Well, the superpower, the way they've got it mocked up, if it was superpower, why in the world would you be addressing bodies? I mean, it's just a simple question is that. Why would you be addressing bodies? It cut us off.
No, I did that because I wanted to make sure that the audio is good, so you can turn yours off. I can't see. Your video image was screwed up before I even turned it off anyway. So
okay.
Yeah. So, but where does it? I mean, have you read the superpower policies or anything, or the bulletins?
Well, I know enough about it from what they said in the promo materials. You know, they have all of these smells, and they have a gyroscope that they put you on, and there are all of these physical sensation things that they're trying to improve. Now, that's the complete opposite of the bridge. You're not trying to put the guy in his body so that he can distinguish French lavender from Romanian lavender. That's not superpower. I mean, come on. That's what they've done. They've turned it into an implant station.
But where does it?
Anybody?
Where's the LRH on this though? Where's the writing that says that they're supposed to be NASA technology machines?
Well, there isn't any. That's the whole thing.
I mean, and they can get away with it. They can just get away with releasing it in the church, and auditors are like, oh, wherever, like, it's just amazing.
Well, it's added inapplicable data as an outpoint because they added all of this stuff and omitted LRH's original superpower, which has absolutely nothing to do with the body. Nothing. You can get it on the internet in a PDF. I have it. I know people that have delivered it. I know people that have received it. It doesn't have a damn thing to do with the body. This is all stuff that they created because basically what they were going after was the money first, and anybody that could come up with the money was a threat, and anybody that had that money would be driven into their body through all of the the stuff that they're doing that basically implants them into their body even more. So basically people are paying to get screwed up. That's the long and the short of it.
Hold on a second. So, what are you saying? So you're saying that something to do with this superpower thing has something to do with picking rich Scientologists?
Yeah, because the whole thing about Scientology, the Church of Scientology, the corporate entity, has become the able being flypaper. Because what's happened is that anybody that's attracted to the subject of Scientology immediately becomes a mark for the establishment that wants to disable people who are really able and are reaching for the subject of Scientology. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So you get some guy, he's a really, really successful chiropractor, and he's got, 25 locations, and he's got chiropractors working under him and all this stuff, making money hand over fist, and he starts reaching for Scientology. Well, first, they're going to bleed him dry. And then second, they're going to spin him in. Because the last thing they want is anybody reaching for Scientology and having any ability. So it's flypaper. They're trying to catch the whales because they're the able people. So they take their money, pat them on the back, and say good job, and then screw them up.
Okay. Like as in you keep them as your whale. You keep them as your pet, like your sheep or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. They take the killer whale out of the ocean and they put him into a swimming pool in Central Florida and say, this is your new home.
Yes, and so I heard from, I think, someone who was involved with Ronsorg or something, that it has some sort of hidden mind control device that it installs or something that these machines install or whatever. Do you know anything about that?
I don't, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I've known for years, just from an OT standpoint, that place was the kiss of death. I mean, like Ellery, there's a reference in from the mid-50s at the lecture. He says the quickest way to implant somebody and pull people in to implant them is to give them, buildings of gold and white that they can stand in awe of, because it attracts the thetans. It's so beautiful. Oh, gosh, I need to be a part of this. Every really good implant station that's ever been looked like those places. I mean, they're built to look like the places on the track.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're doing the same thing LRH did with the books, because LRH used to put images on the front of the original print books that re-stimulated people to get them to go, there's something about that book. I should read that. I can't quite put my finger on it. Like the R6 God is on the front of Fundamentals of Thought. That sort of a thing. Well, they're doing the same thing, the church is, by creating these places that are very similar to places on the track that look like the Catholic Church. Isn't that ironic?
Yeah.
They got all this gold filigree and everything. I mean, it's so tracky, it's not even funny, because they're just trying to suck people in and do harm to them. They just don't know that.
Well, look. If the evidence, which really is indicating that it got taken over by the CIA or something, right? Then now they've got this group, right, where they then shut down the Div 6 so it doesn't grow any bigger. Now they've got this great group that they can do experiments with this mind control stuff. They've got that Montauk thing, and they've probably got other bases as well where they're actually abducting people. But now they've got this great community of people, these Scientologists, these American Scientologists, where they're like, great, now we can develop these machines and see how they're going and stuff. And do you think something like that, or is this just bullshit?
Well, I could neither confirm or deny any of that. It wouldn't surprise me, but I doubt it. I think that Scientology is corporate Scientology is basically sort of a money laundering facility for one of the organizations that's running it, or something like that. It's a front. That's pretty much what it's become, and it's become basically a real estate acquisition firm, and I mean, they don't even make Class 8s. They don't make Class 6s. They're not making Class 4s anymore. They don't have tech volumes in the course rooms. You know, they've in name alone more than anything. And I think that's what it's become. Is it's more of a money laundering real estate acquisition firm than anything else. That's it. I think that the technology that they have outside of the church that they stole from the church in the early 70s, I think they've far surpassed it with something a lot more nefarious by now, imbuing it with the electronic advances that they have or were given by, you know, another race, another society, somewhere off-world, that sort of a thing, based off of the stories that I've heard. I've never seen this stuff myself, but my own knowingness tells me that they've gone far beyond anything that we have in Scientology as far as some of the things that the individuals that they have can do. And that just goes to show you that you can have an OT and he doesn't have to be nice, which is kind of a scary thought.
So you really do believe that that superpower is an implant station, sort of, and it literally is something that you go into that mind controls you?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, the first guy to do superpower, the first public to do superpower was Matt Fishbeck. And the story behind him and his family was that on Black Friday back in the late 80s when the stock market crashed, they happened to be in a big short position, and they made millions upon millions of dollars in that short position, and they became the darlings, David Miscavige's darlings, for years. I was on course with Matt and his sister at Flag in '88 when they were on the briefing course, and after Matt did superpower, and I believe his sister did superpower too, Kathy. I think there might have been one or two others. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But now they're broke and in debt to the IRS to over $10 million and have literally nothing to their names after doing superpower. You tell me what happened.
Now, hold on a second. What year did they do superpower?
Matt did superpower probably 10 years ago.
So he did a trial version of it at Flag or something?
He was the first public to receive superpower because they had donated so much of their wealth to the church. Well, and now they owe the IRS and they're flat-ass broke.
Okay, and did he do the whole NASA machine thing, or did he do the actual?
Yeah, he did. Oh, okay. He did the whole gamut of everything that they had turned their so-called superpower into, which was not LRH.
So after that, they then got into trouble with the IRS.
Yeah, you can Google it. Matt and Kathy Fishbeck.
Okay.
It's on the internet for everybody to see through the IRS and their downfall because they gave the church all of their money, and then when they didn't have any more money, the church kicked them to the curb.
Interesting. So what do you think that says about the IRS?
Well, I mean, you know, when you got a former commissioner from the IRS who was part of CST, I think it speaks for itself.
Meaning that the IRS want to milk rich Scientologists as well, or?
Well, I think that the IRS either are part owners in or entire owners in, or the IRS, whoever owns, I mean, you know, we know who owns the IRS. It's pretty obvious that the wealthy families on the planet.
You're still there? I can't hear. It's cut out. Sorry, can you say that? It cut out.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, say it again.
So what I was saying is that the Federal Reserve, the IRS, all of that whole cabal are the ones that are, you know, calling the shots for what is now left of the Church of Scientology.
Yeah. And they're like the CST board of directors, or they're connected with them or something.
Yeah, they're the ones that are above CST. The board of directors of CST are just, they're the ones that take the marching orders. That's all that is.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. All right, thanks for that. That was great. I mean, I've just got one really quick last one, okay? Why does it clear? Because when you go clear, and I've heard people say it when they go proper clear and stuff, it seems really great. Like they say that there's just this clearness and this calmness, and it's not all noise and traffic and stuff in their mind. How long does that state last for? And does it last forever?
No, a person can, lose their state of clear. I mean, a clear is a really good start, but it isn't necessarily entirely stable, because once a person goes clear, you're sort of like opening Pandora's box. And that's why from clear to OT3, you're in the non-interference zone, because it's a really good start, but it's a really good start to Pandora's box, and you need to get from clear to OT3 as quickly as possible, because the materials that are on OT2 and OT3 are part and parcel to what makes a person not clear. So you're at risk. So that's why LRH said that it's, basically a very dicey area, and that a person is at risk until they complete OT3. Then you're at risk from something else beyond that, because it's a progressive series of states, and as you peel one layer of the onion, now you have another layer of the onion to peel while your eyes are watering, and you peel that layer of the onion, now your eyes are watering more, but you're getting the onion peeled, and that's just how it is, because you're opening your newer vistas of bigger and larger charge, the composite case, and all of that. But you can't go doing the OT levels without going clear first. So it's a big deal to go clear, but it's also a big deal that once you get done with clear, that you get through OT3 as quickly as possible and not dawdle around. Okay,
well then what if you're one of these people though that go clear and they're feeling a million times better, and they maybe it's a lifestyle that they're living or whatever, they're not running into any problems and they feel real great, and it's hard to sell them more Scientology because they're like, hey, I'm doing real great?
Well, there are those people that do that. There are people that do the entire bridge and finish Excalibur and do some of the CBR bridge, and then all of a sudden they just stop and they don't do anything else for the rest of their lives. It happens. That's beings do funny things, and it's sort of inexplicable, but it's their choice, and if they decide to do that and they don't want to do any more, there may be causes for it, and I could, pontificate on it for an hour probably as to why that is, but like LRH says, a being is always trying to be right, and you have to look at it for what it is, and they're saying they feel good and they don't need any more auditing. Well, that's them being right. Acknowledge it and let them do what they want to do. You can't force a being to go OT.
Yeah, but also it's I think it's a sign that they don't realize that. Yeah, it's like you're going good, but you have to evolve. You have to keep on updating your computer and blah blah blah. Otherwise, time will go on, and this universe. You have to keep on evolving and improving. If you stop that, you're just going to fall down the toilet eventually.
Right, but you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And the OT levels are specifically about self-determinism, and then ultimately, at some point, you're going to have to audit out the auditing. And it's my personal opinion that a lot of these people that go clear and then don't do anything else need to have their auditing audited out because they feel other determined, and that's why they stop. That's just my hypothesis.
Ah, interesting. Yeah. But I personally do. Yeah, but I do personally believe that they do genuinely feel a million times better and just feel good and just want to live their life for a while.
Sure. Well, yeah. I mean, it's all relative. If they don't know what they see clear and they experience and they're like, wow, this is great. Well, relative to what? The life they were living before that? Okay, I get it. But they don't know what they don't know, and that there's a lot more to it that they're not aware of. It's just that's the best they've ever felt, so if it isn't broke, don't fix it. And that's where they stay. I mean, they're a dime a dozen. I don't know how many. Probably over 100 people I've met like that. And they never progressed any further because no, I'm good. Clint Eastwood, for example. George Brett of the Kansas City Royals. 2 examples. Went clear in Scientology, big secret, never came out of the closet, never did another thing in Scientology. Not a thing. Yeah.
Wow.
And
So Clint Eastwood went clear.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, so that's pretty much it, but are you willing to do one last funky thing?
What's that?
Testing exteriorization.
Well, I don't know that I could do it tonight because I pulled my neck out the other day after going to the chiropractor. I think I got improperly adjusted, and I've had a doozy of a right side headache until I can go see the chiropractor on Monday. So I'm kind of reluctant to do that because I've got a fairly strong somatic in the right side of my back and right head going on. So I don't know.
So somatics pull you back into the body, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of sticks you to the body. And if I could go to the chiropractor to get it straightened out, I would. But it's Thanksgiving here, so they were closed. It happened on Thursday afternoon. I went to the chiropractor Wednesday, and they are closed until Monday. So I would probably let you down on that. I don't think that I could do it properly. My body rudiments are sort of out, so I would have to decline.
Yeah, well,
otherwise I would.
Somatics are like a little alarm clock going off, waking you up. Something like that, I think. I've heard other people talk about it.
Yeah, and I looked, I mean, I haven't gone in session on it, but I've looked at it from an OT perspective, and it's a body thing. It's not a knots thing or anything like that. It's just something is out of alignment, and I pulled it out of alignment by accident.
Yeah,
and,
so
I need to get it.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because I know that the Scientology haters will be like, see, look, he's done all this Scientology, and look, he doesn't think Scientology can handle his neck thing. Scientology's crap.
Right. Well, I mean, like Allure says, he says, there's no replacement for a good medical doctor. And that's the truth. I mean, there's body things that have to be handled. So, I don't know what else to say, but that's the deal.
Yeah. And some people, they might be doing a lot of their bridge, and they might be getting exposed every day to something that they're like some chemical that's unnatural that they're not even aware of, and then they're not feeling that good, and they've still got some sort of somatics, and they're thinking, oh, Scientology isn't that good, it didn't cure my somatic, my mind's still crazy, and that's why I have this somatic. And it's like, no, it's not a mind thing. It's like, there's like chemicals in your carpet that you're breathing in, like from your fresh new carpet that you got installed in your house, and it's unnatural,
Yeah, well, the body is a liability. It is an impedance to a thetan, and it is unnatural to a thetan. And it holds a thetan back. It holds a being back. And there's an agreement there that they work together mutually. But sometimes they don't work so well together mutually because they are exact opposites of each other. So shit happens. And, Scientology can solve a lot of things, but bodies do tend to wear out and break down, and they need to be adjusted, and they need to be serviced, and they need to be taken care of as they break down and as the body gets older. And OT or not, the body is going to wear out just like a car does. You can be Arnold Schwarzenegger and be in the best health you've ever been and been working out and benching 300 pounds, but if your car doesn't work, and you're not going to get to the gym on time.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yep. So if people want to go to your mission, do they search your name in Google, or will you even come up in Google?
Yeah. We will. I mean, we don't have it keyworded out or anything like that, but it's just Advanced Org of the Great Plains. .org, not .com, because we're not commercial. We're an organization. We're based in Kansas City, Missouri, and we travel all over the country, and we can even come to your country if need be, and we want to help people get up the bridge and train them. We do audit all the way up to L12. We have a Class 8 CS, 2 of them, and we can deliver pretty much the entire bridge on both sides.
Okay,
without bias.
Okay, and does .org mean a non-for-profit?
It just means that you're an organization. I mean, we're not really doing it for profit. If I were to say that I profited off of any of the auditing cycles that I've done in the last 4 years in the field, that would be a lie. I have not profited off of those because all we've done is pay our expenses for the travel, holding our position, and delivering the services. We have got nothing to show for anything that we've done. It's just holding our position because that's all we can do, because we charge, what we consider decent rates to keep the lights on, but we're not profiting, that's for sure.
Okay, but whenever you see websites that are .org, should you automatically think that that's a non-for-profit organisation, or is that false?
I don't think there's anything legal that says that it's just sort of a understood designation that it's an organization. You don't have to have any legal IRS paperwork that says you're a nonprofit. So it's more of a designator than it is a legal thing.
But some business like McDonald's, could they make theirs McDonald's.org, or would that be totally inappropriate?
Well, the usual rule of thumb is when you're buying URLs from a domain company is to buy up as many of them as you can so that nobody can swoop in and make it, McDonald's.org instead of McDonald's.com. So most companies buy up as many of them as they can, like McDonald's.us or McDonald's.biz. That's just it's sort of a given that companies will do that. And in our situation, if the church wanted to, they could come in and swoop in and buy advancedorganization.com, AO-GP.com, but that's why I bought it, even though I'm not using it, so that they can't.
Cool. All right, great. Thanks for speaking to me with all these interviews and stuff. It's really good. I mean, this one went over the 2.5 hour mark, but we had to finish it off, and at least it didn't go too far over. It's probably almost about 3 hours. But anyway, thanks for talking to me, John.
You're welcome.
All right. See ya. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, I hope you liked that interview with Jonathan Burke. I just checked that joke, and I'm going to read it out again with my spelling corrections because I think it makes sense. Because I think they might have not edited this joke. So in the joke book, they must have forgotten to edit one of the jokes. So this is what I think the joke's supposed to say. It's supposed to say, a Scientologist with one ear went into a bar. Do you want a beer? Asked the bartender. The Scientologist, I've got one ear. I think that's the lame, crappy joke that it's supposed to be, as opposed to what it says, which is, a Scientologist with one ear went into a bar. Do you want a beer? Asked the Scientologist. The Scientologist, I've got one ear. That's got to be a spelling mistake. Wow, that was exciting. Anyway, I hope you liked that interview. I liked it. We're going to end off the podcast, but there's an LRH quote before. This is the quote. The first step of handling anything is gaining an ability to face it. And that's from Scientology, A New Slant on Life. I think that's very important. The first step of handling anything is gaining an ability to face it. Some people can't face things. Some people can't handle things because they can't face them. They shy away from them. Maybe their boss or something, they're really scared of their boss, and they don't have an ability to face their boss, or they don't have the ability to face their parents or something, and they're just like, oh. And so they can't handle their parents, like as in they can't improve the situation with their parents or their boss or something, because they can't face it and they can't communicate, and they freak out. And so you've got to face it. And this is where auditing helps, because it helps give you confidence and stuff to face things, especially I feel like objective auditing, because it gets you to face the universe and confront it. But a big factor in this is the fact that you have to harden up. I know it doesn't feel good, but you have to face it. And I notice this with people who are Sometimes you can have a bit of a rough time when you're doing Scientology auditing because it's can be tough doing some certain actions. And some people would try and avoid going in session, and they couldn't face it. And I was kind of surprised at that because I was like, well, this is tough or whatever. But I never had the attitude of actually trying to avoid auditing. I was like, no, I've got to go in there and handle this and face it, And other people, some people who were scared or whatever, I don't know, they had a problem with facing it. And so they would sort of run away. And it's just like, no, that's really sick. That's really perverted. You've got to go in there and you've got to confront whatever you can't handle. And yes, of course it doesn't feel good. Like, yes, of course it's tough. Yes, of course talking to your boss or whatever, is you're having a problem with your boss or something, isn't going to be easy. But you have to do it. You have to harden up. Don't worry about fancy philosophy or auditing and all this sort of stuff. But just at the end of the day, if you've got a problem that you got to handle, and you're not going to enjoy it, you have to sit there, realize it's going to be tough, harden up and just go and do it. And then you'll find it gets easier and easier and easier. In fact, there's something I've noticed about doing things where the first time's always really hard, but then after that, it's a lot easier. Then after that, it's a lot easier. Then after that, it's almost automatic and it's really easy. And that's why some people, they look at other people who have achieved success and they're like, wow, how did he do all that? I tried to do that once and it was so hard. And it's just like, yeah, because you tried to do it once. Everything is, in this universe, everything's really hard the first time. It's like rolling a car. The first push is really hard, but once it starts rolling, it's a lot easier. So you have to harden up in your life. Just in general, you have to be tough and harden up. Like, what does LH say? He says only the lions survive or something, and even they have a hard time surviving. So it's like you have to just grit your teeth and harden up. And it's just like, yeah, you're not going to feel good, but just experience it. Go and do it and go be like, oh, wow, this is interesting. I feel horrible right now. What an interesting experience. Have that attitude to it. Have that detached attitude to it. Don't be like, I feel horrible. I got to not do this, and then run away from your problem. Enjoy the experience of it and just go, whoa, this is wild. Realize that it's not really you. It's a bad part of your mind that's making you feel bad about handling it, and just go, whoa, appreciate it. Go, wow, this is like being in a video game with surround sound and it's like tapped into my body. I'm actually full on feeling emotions and everything. Whoa, what an experience. I feel horrible right now. Like, that's interesting. And one day they'll invent computer games that are so good that literally you'll be able to do that, where you go into battle and you'll actually be able to feel the emotions and everything. It'll be wild. It'll be a full on Matrix. And what are you going to do then when you're playing a video game? You're going to go, oh, no, I didn't like that feeling. I'm not going to feel it. Don't worry. It's not you. It's just an experience you're having. Anyway, so the first step of handling anything is gaining an ability to face it. So that's it for the podcast. It's time for you to climb back out of this rabbit hole, out of this interesting Scientology world. If you have any good Scientology-related news, success stories or jokes, then send them to andynolch@hotmail.com and make sure you edit those jokes. No spelling mistakes. Thanks for listening. I've been your host, Andy Nolch, the Space Cowboy. You have been listening to the Indie Scientology podcast. And until next time, keep learning and get up that bridge.